a feel-good Friday, and it is a Red Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski here, Dan Lucero here. You're here with us as well, and we appreciate it so much as we get ready, finally, after a week and frankly a whole year of anticipation. The NFL playoffs are back. They return tomorrow. 2 games on Saturday, including the Chiefs. 3 games, a triple header on Sunday, and then the Monday night game as well. We will break all of it down, and especially I'm throwing cords all over the place. Fired up here in the studio today. We're going to break every game down. We'll give you our picks for every game, and of course, we've got a lot of Chiefs to get to coming up in the show today, including right here in the opening hour of 580 Sports Talk. We'll get our keys to the Dolphins matchup, top keys for both of us, big Chief pick, score prediction, all that. We'll also play some Change My Mind, and I think it is at least worth bringing up. Is there actually a threshold for when toughness and playing in the cold and football weather actually becomes a bad thing? Even for someone like me, is there a threshold for it? We'll talk about that coming up at the bottom of the hour, because I feel like I've seen more pushback to bad weather for these games this weekend than I've ever seen before. So we'll break that down coming up in a little bit. All pro teams were also released today. We'll get to that in the 3 o'clock hour. Chiefs got a handful, including a quarterback. Maybe not the one you would have thought. However, I will tell you this, one that makes me feel really smart, if you remember our bold predictions from the start of the year.
Boy, I was hoping you'd forgotten.
Oh, don't worry. With the number of things I get wrong on a daily basis, I got to keep the good ones in the back of my mind at all times.
Celebrate your wins, right?
We've also got Matt Derrick. He's going to join us in the 3 o'clock hour today. We'll make our picks for Wild Card Weekend. Preview some of the other weekend action. KU is taking on Oklahoma. That's a top 10 matchup. KU not going to stay in the top 10 after that loss to UCF. But can KU bounce back? Change to the starting lineup. Bill Self just announced minutes ago Johnny Furphy is going to start for KU coming up on Saturday. K-State versus Texas Tech. One team will come out of that game 3-0 in Big 12 play, and that's a really nice spot to start in for 2 teams that would probably consider a tournament berth a successful year. So we'll get to those other storylines from around the NFL. Headlines. We're out of here early today for some high school basketball. Dan will be on the call tonight for some UKC rivalry action.
Yeah, we've got Shawnee Heights and Seaman tonight. Girls game is a top 10 matchup. 10th ranked T-Birds, 3rd ranked Lady Vikes. Shawnee Heights is 5-1, Seaman 7-0. So that's a big time girls game tonight. Then the boys game tonight. Neither of those teams is ranked. Seaman 3-3 on the year. Shawnee Heights has won 4 in a row after an 0-2 start. So should be great games. It always is. Seaman and Shawnee Heights are always hotly contested games, no matter what the sport is. So looking forward to that tonight. We'll be on the air around 5:30, give or take a bit, with our pregame coverage.
Looking forward to that one. That's such an impressive number, stat, or fact that Shawnee Heights is in the top 10 this year. That was a really dang good team all last year, but they lost 4 out of 5 starters and rotational pieces. And man, Bob Wells' group, really impressive. And that Seaman girls team is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So much talent.
It's going to be Heights lost their opener to DeSoto, who's also quite good, and they haven't lost since. They're 5-0 since then, and Seaman hasn't lost at all, including wins over perennial power St. James, and they've got a win over DeSoto in there. So, yeah, it'll be a big-time test for Shawnee Heights, and it'll be a big test for Seaman on their home floor.
Yeah, we're pumped for that one. Pre-game coverage will begin at about 5:30 today. Dan and the coach, Larry Latimer, will be on the call of that one. We will have full coverage for you on our Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader. We would love to hear from you, your thoughts on Super Wildcard Weekend, your thoughts on Chiefs Dolphins, KU and K-State's action this weekend. Whatever you want to hit us up about, you can do so either on the text line. You know the number. It's 785-272-9429. Or you can hop into the comments section on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is where you can find us on YouTube. Go ahead over, subscribe. We've added a couple this week. Appreciate you guys for following along and subscribing to us. And again, head to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk, and that is where you can find our live stream today and every single day. A lot of headlines today, by the way. We've got 2 new head coaches. The 2 biggest openings in the football world, the New England Patriots with Bill Belichick leaving, the Alabama Crimson Tide with Nick Saban leaving, both already have their new head coaches. That did not take very long.
Yeah, it would certainly seem that Alabama has narrowed its sights and is very close to finalizing something with Washington head coach Kalen DeBoer. And as we talked about yesterday, it's Gerard Mayo stepping in and filling Bill Belichick's shoes in New England.
Yes, we'll break all that down coming up across the rest of the show today. Right now, though, it's time to get to our keys to the game. Chiefs, Dolphins, dangerously cold temperature, dangerously cold wind chill coming up on Saturday night. Chiefs won the first time they will not get a normal set of elements for this game. On the road, in Germany, overseas, obviously all the challenges that come with that back in week 9. Now this game, freezing cold. It is going to be horrible out there. Please be careful if you are going to the game. Gloves, layers, hat, scarf. Bring the cardboard. You know Jake would tell you that. Bring the cardboard to stand on so your feet don't freeze.
Last I saw, the get-in for this game on one of the major online ticket brokers, was $37.
I saw that too.
People don't really want to sit in the cold. You know who loves to sit in the cold, though? The sickos, the diehards, the people who are going to come and make some real noise. I think it was Matt Verderam who suggested that the composition of the crowd is going to turn that place into an insane asylum tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Because, you're not going to have the people who, I don't know how everybody refers to it, but you call it the wine and cheese crowd, a little bit, the pampered crowd. You're going to get some dudes who come and they're going to be needing an Uber home because they're going to be 16 beers deep before kickoff, and they're going to be there to make some noise, and they're going to say some things about Tua Tagovailoa that are ethically and morally questionable, and they're going to turn that place into a bounce house, even though
his dad's going to be there.
Wow.
I will never say a nice thing about Galu Tagovailoa. But anyway, continue.
No, it will be fascinating, the atmosphere in that stadium, because it will never be cheaper to go see Patrick Mahomes play a playoff game. I'm just going to tell you guys that right now. If you were thinking about doing it, if that is a bucket list item for you, Chiefs playoff game, see Patrick Mahomes live, see Patrick Mahomes in a playoff game. It is extremely attainable right now if you want to go to the secondary market and pay less than you'd pay for like an infield box seat for a June Royals game to go and see the Chiefs in the playoffs. And that's all because of the weather. But if you're tough enough, if a little cold, if the cold doesn't bother you anyway, if you're Elsa from Frozen, then get out there and get your cold weather gear and go support the Chiefs, because seriously, like, this might be the opportunity that you don't otherwise get, like, from a financial perspective, to make it shake to go see a playoff game.
Have you seen Frozen?
No.
I was surprised. I've never thought of you as a big Disney princess guy.
I am a big pop culture guy.
Okay.
And I'm familiar as such with Let It Go.
For what it's worth, it was actually a really good animated kids movie. Like, really good. I remember when it came out, it was 2013. I was like, this whole movie is about this dumb snowman. No, it was actually really good. Very enjoyable. If you have kids, I'm sure you've watched it a million times. If you have had kids born since 2013. No, that was a good pull. I was very impressed by that.
Thank you.
All right, let's get to the actual action on the field. What is it going to take to win this game? To me, you want to start this game the way you started the last game against Miami, and that is get out to a strong start. The scripted plays in Germany for the Chiefs, pristine. They were fantastic. It was maybe the best opening drive of the entire season for Kansas City. They went right down the field, tore up that Miami defense, a defense that is now even worse and even thinner than it was all the way back halfway through the season in week 9. And that was especially important in that game because after halftime, the Chiefs hit the skids. I have it in our notes here. Do you know how many yards of offense the Chiefs had in the second half of that game in week 9?
It was in the double digits.
46. They had 46 yards of offense in the second half of that game. This is a team that has offensive woes, offensive issues. We know that. We have been over that. We have addressed them this week. And they will be potentially magnified when it is harder to throw the ball and certainly harder to catch the ball with the frigid conditions on Saturday night. So getting out to a hot start, putting together a strong first quarter, first half, getting out to that fast start, I think, is going to put a lot of pressure on Miami. I love the Chiefs secondary matchup against Miami in this game. I like Chiefs defensive backs in general against pretty much anyone. And with the way Tua Tagovailoa is playing, and I say this as someone who likes Tua, it has not been up to the standards of a top-tier NFL quarterback. It hasn't even been just good NFL quarterback in the last 2 weeks against two good teams. Blowout loss to Baltimore, bad loss against Buffalo. Now you're playing maybe the best pass defense in the entire NFL and a defensive coordinator in Steve Spagnuolo who is going to be relentless in this game. At least I would imagine he's going to be relentless in this game. Try to put pressure on Tua to throw the ball into tight spaces with pressure in his face. So knowing that there are going to be struggles that probably show up in this game, they would for anybody, and knowing that you want Miami to be behind the 8 ball early, got to get out to a fast start, got to put points on the board on the first couple of possessions.
Miami's 11-1 when they lead at halftime, and they're 0-5 when they trail at halftime. It might just really be that simple as to what you want to do in this game. If you can get out to a lead and force Miami to play from behind, they are not counterpunchers. They do not get off the mat easily. We've been saying it all year. So certainly agree that that's going to be pretty vital for the Chiefs. I'm cheating a little bit with my first key because I got to talk to Mitch Holthus yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get a little bit of insider info when it comes to having a conversation with Mitch Holthus. If you missed that on yesterday's program, you can check it out on our podcast page. It was in hour 4 of yesterday's show, 580WIBW.com. And the biggest thing for me, the number one key is the Chiefs have to be gap sound on defense. I think the combination of how good the Chiefs secondary is, how beat up the Dolphins are at wide receiver, and the weather are all that combination is going to be what limits the splash plays through the air for the Dolphins. They're not going to be able to hit for those 20 plus yard completions that are a big part of their offense. So their best bet for the field flipping, point generating plays is going to be on the ground. They've got a good running game. They've got an inventive running game. They're always seemingly coming up with a new running concept. It's not like they're going to run power. You know, they're not running duo. It's not a lot of stuff you see in your Madden playbook. It's exotic, but you get to the same place. And tackling is not going to be easy in this game. When it's cold, tackling gets worse. It's just matter of fact. The Finns got some fast backs. They're beat up. They're also coming off of injuries. Raheem Mostert hasn't played in 2 weeks, and Devin Achane is also questionable for this one. But they are still fast. And speed gives you cutback opportunities. Speed gives you cutback opportunities to make big plays. So one of the things Mitch talked about was the importance of being gap sound. If you've got the backside B gap, you stay in the backside B gap. You have to be willing to maybe live with Raheem Mostert getting 4, 5, 6 yards on the front side of the play, because the alternative is giving up 40, 50 if he can hit a backside cutback on a run. So gap soundness, hugely important for the Chiefs. They just have to be assignment sound. And I think the way this defense has played together all season, I think it's something that the Chiefs should be able to accomplish.
I would agree with that. I do ask, and I think this is important because we've talked about the running game for Miami and how Miami will probably need to lean on that at least somewhat because it's going to be harder to throw the ball. How worried are you about Miami's run game? Is it the kind of thing where you look at it and you just say, hey, you got to stop it. That's just part of the game. You know, they're going to try to run it. They're going to try to run all that gap scheme stuff. You've got to be able to plug up those holes, get in your run fits. Or is it the kind of thing where you look at the matchup and say, I'm actually legitimately concerned about it because that is the one area where this might go sideways?
If the Dolphins win, I think it's going to be because they have a big game on the ground.
Okay.
Let me say that. I don't think they're going to win because Tua throws for 350 yards in sub-zero temperatures. I think if they win, it will be because they committed to the ground game, because they popped some big runs, and they were able to get in scoring range on some big, long cutback runs. I think that for the Chiefs, too, I don't worry about them getting beat with the pass because, again, I have regard for their secondary. I have regard for their pass rush. Their rush defense this year, the advanced numbers suggest, wasn't all that proficient. So I think the Chiefs really do need to be sharp when it comes to their rush defense, because if you do limit them early and you do get out to a lead, then their running game is just about completely neutered at that point. And then they do have to beat you through the air in wind chills in the -20s. And if that's where the Dolphins are at any point in this game, all the best.
I just looked this up. So the information is a little bit old. It's from 2012. Brian Burke, who I believe right now works for ESPN. He's been a football analytics writer for a long time. But he has the yards per carry for home and away teams by temperature and by climate from 2000 through 2012, visiting teams average almost a half a yard less per carry than home teams when the temperature is below freezing. One, that sounds kind of ridiculous. Like, why is that actually the case? But it also makes a lot of sense if you think about it, and I think it makes a lot of sense for this game. The Dolphins are far less used to this kind of weather than the Chiefs are. The Chiefs know they are going to have a harder time moving the ball through the air than they normally would in a different environment, and thus can sell out more for the run. This is, again, 12 years worth of data. This is not just like, oh, well, in the last 5 games, this has happened. No, this is over a decade's worth of games. And when we played 16 games in a year, you're looking at somewhere approaching 2,700 football games. So there's a clear trend here. And I'm in agreement. I think that's what Miami has to do if the Dolphins want to win this game. But if I'm the Chiefs and you know what's coming and you know what that other team's weaknesses are, I feel like you can kind of sell out to try to stop it, especially because you've got corners on the back end where if Miami is somehow against all odds able to move the ball well through the air, do you trust Snead on an island if you need him to make a few plays a couple of times? Do you trust Trent McDuffie on an island a couple of times if you have to make plays? I do. I certainly do. So
here's the biggest question. Chiefs played a lot of too high safety in the first meeting. It's how they took away Tyreek Hill, took away those big passing plays for the Dolphins. Do they stick with that early in this game to try and mitigate the big passing play, or do they creep that other safety down into the box and only play one high? I think that's going to be interesting strategical wrinkle to watch. Do you give yourself an extra man in the box against the ground game, or do you stick with what worked in week 9?
Second key to the game for me, by the way, and this is an offense thing, this is a defense thing. It is old school, it is meathead, it is cliched, but you win this game if you just out tough Miami. And I know that it is very meathead of me to say, but it's true. This is a beaten up Dolphins team. I had to look it up today. There is something called the Marine Mammal Protection Act. You might need to invoke it in this game with how banged up the Dolphins are going into this one. You have the advantage on your defensive line versus their offensive line, your offensive line versus their defensive line. So prove it. So show it. They are down so many bodies. They're not going to be able to rush the passer. I was just listening to the Athletic Football Show this afternoon because I really like the way that those guys break down individual games. They've got all sorts of deep statistical information. Andrew Van Ginkel, who got injured last week in the loss to Buffalo for Miami, was one of the top graded pass rushers in the entire NFL. No one thinks about Andrew Van Ginkel as this, TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Joey Bosa kind of pass rusher. Nick Bosa probably, but still, you know what I'm saying. He's not playing in this game. They've got nobody. They've never been a great run stuffing team. Offensively, they are so banged up. They're on at least their second, if not their third center already this year. They've had injuries all over the rest of that line as we've laid out over the course of the week and over the course of the day today. I just feel like this is the kind of game where you play old school football as best as you can. You just try to be the more physically and mentally tough team. And no, that doesn't mean be the team that goes out for warm-ups without sleeves on. That just means actually showing it when the ball is snapped down to down. And if you do that, I'm confident the Chiefs win this game.
I follow former NFL offensive lineman George Foster on Twitter. He's a pretty entertaining follow. Former first round pick of the Denver Broncos, played his college football at Georgia. Usually just tweeting trash talk about his alma mater is what he does. But he talks a lot of football on Twitter, and he was talking today about Arrowhead Stadium, the reports of how cold it's going to be. He says there were games you played at Arrowhead where you could tap dance on the turf. That's how hard the ground gets when it gets cold, this kind of cold in Kansas City. You know what that probably wouldn't feel real good on? Bum knees.
Nope.
Aching legs.
Nope.
Bad ankles. And the Dolphins are just chock full of those. Mm-hmm. Like, you do need to take the fight to them and be physical. And you don't want to overstate that, because then it sounds like you're saying you got to injure these guys. And then all of a sudden I'm Greg Williams and it's Bountygate all over again. And I'm getting suspended from the NFL for a year, which would be terrible. It would be hard for me to make a living if I could not work in the NFL for a calendar year.
You wouldn't be able to do the 2:00 segment every day.
Yeah, that would be tough. But yeah, like, being physical, tackling, being the better tackling team, being the better team in the trenches, that should be Kansas City's advantage in this game.
By the way, I know we've been over the injury report. Dolphins have 4 guys questionable: Deshaun Elliott, Javon Holland, Raheem Mostert, and Jalen Waddle. Xavier Howard's not going to play.
Those first 2 names, by the way, both their starting safeties, none of whom practiced this week.
No, not even once. You'd think you'd want to be at least a little warmed up for this game. No pun intended. Javon Holland, did you see what his injury is listed as?
Knees.
Yeah, not knee, knees. Can you imagine playing on that rock hard turf with 2 bum knees? Miserable. You'd be in pain all game.
Yeah.
I have some doubts about his availability.
And you know who has a little bit of Marshawn Lynch run through a so-and-so's face about him in such a way that would make it not fun to tackle him if you were on bum knees in the cold? Isaiah Pacheco. More about him in a little bit. My second key of the game is going to be the screen game for the Chiefs. The Dolphins pass rush, as we've discussed, is in dire shape. They are bringing dudes in off the street. Justin Houston and Bruce Irvin are probably going to play meaningful numbers of snaps in this game. They did not play football games last week. It's going to be just an absolute patchwork edge group for defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, which means if he's going to put pressure on Patrick Mahomes, he's going to have to bring extra guys, at least one. You're going to see some 5 and some 6-man pressures. That should open up Andy Reid's vaunted bag of tricks in the screen game. Got to get the ball to guys in space. Those guys have to catch it. Hasn't always been a guarantee, but you get those guys in space. I would expect a couple of screen passes in this game to pop big and be those field flipping plays. Like I'm thinking at least one 50+ yard screen pass that it results in points for the Chiefs at some point. I think the screen game, particularly in weather like this, is going to be maybe the best part. Maybe that's where the splash plays for the Chiefs are going to come from tomorrow night.
Wouldn't that be nice if we were waiting all season for the Chiefs to get crafty with the screen game again, only for them to pull it out in just blindingly cold weather? Like so cold you can't open your eyes. And it's going to be windy. Oh, it's going to be so awful. It is just going to be so terrible. Big Chief picks for this game. I am going with Isaiah Pacheco, as Dan alluded to a moment ago. I heard this as well on that same podcast that I mentioned a moment ago. The Chiefs this year, 29th in the NFL in success rate on first and second down in the run game. So essentially, that's a lot of words to say the Chiefs do not move the ball well on first and second down when they run it. Normally you think, first down run, second down run, third down, the old run pass thing. If the Chiefs ever do that, they end up in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. It doesn't work. Now, thankfully, the Chiefs don't run the ball on first down all that much anyway. They're much more of a second down running team, generally speaking. This is the kind of game that where, again, you need to be stout up front. You need to be able to move bodies with that offensive line, open up holes. Should be opportunities, especially between the guard and the tackle, to do that on both sides of the line in this game tomorrow. So I still like Pacheco. This is the game he is built for. This is the ultimate kind of Pacheco game. The one worry, though, ball, cold, icy, hard to hold on to. You do maybe worry about the fumbling issues a little bit. Hold it high and tight. I think Pacheco can have a big day.
I'm going with Chris Jones as my big chief. I think the disruption through the middle of that offensive line for the Dolphins is going to be vital in getting Tua Tagovailoa off his looks and hitting him. And also his ability to penetrate is what should blow up the Dolphins running game and keep them from having a lot of explosives on the ground. They're going to try and run away from him. They do a lot of work to the outside, but you can force a play further outside faster than you wanted to get outside if you've got the ability of Chris Jones. He's halfway to another significant money bonus because he was named a first-team All-Pro today. If he combines that with a Super Bowl win, then he stands to make a nice little chunk of money. We saw how much that motivated him in Week 18. I think we are going to see a man possessed in these playoffs. Chris Jones is my big chief pick.
All right, score prediction for this one. I know we're both on the Chiefs. We've been saying it all week long. We've been saying it since before that Dolphins game went final in Week 18 when they lost to the Bills. I'm going with the Chiefs. I'm going with the Chiefs to cover the spread. I think it's going to be fairly low scoring, lower for the Dolphins. Chiefs 21, Dolphins 10. Chiefs advance on to the divisional round. Dolphins have to ask a lot of foundational questions about that franchise.
I'm going 24-17 Chiefs. I know that's higher scoring than a lot of people think, but it's still not higher scoring than Vegas thinks. The over-under on that game is kind of stuck at 43.5.
It's interesting.
So, I'm going just below that with a 24-17 final for the Chiefs. I think that tackling is going to be hard. I think there might be an advantage to the offenses early in the game, but as the game wears on, I think the freshness of the Chiefs, having had last week to rest against a beaten up Dolphins team, is going to ultimately be what provides the Chiefs the edge over the course of 60 minutes.
We've got Vance on YouTube saying they could offer free tickets and spending money, and that would not be enough to sit through a game that cold. I don't know if they're giving me cash to spend, maybe.
Yeah, we got a texter from the 785 says zero chance I'd go to that game even if it was free.
Mark invokes the lyrics of Foreigner on YouTube. Going to be cold as ice. Yeah, colder than ice in this game. Also, Bradley on YouTube, he says it'll be cold, but I think the Chiefs are going to throw everyone for a loop and try to go big early, then commit to the ground game. Classic school of thought. I think it'll work in this one. We'd love to know what you think about the game tomorrow night. Hit us up on the text line 785-272-9429, or you can drop a line on the YouTube comments and the YouTube stream. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube is where you can find us. By the way, I want to make this clear before we get to a commercial break, because we've had a lot of people who have texted in or emailed us at the radio station or asked around about this. If you do not have Peacock and you do not want to pay for Peacock, we have heard of a surprising number of people. To me, I didn't know this was as big of a thing. People who are just protesting it and saying, I'm not even going to a sports bar to watch this because I refuse to give eyeballs to a game that's on the Peacock streaming service. We are going to carry the game here on 580. We have Mitch Holthus and the crew, full home team broadcast right here on 580 AM and in the city at 104.9 FM. So don't worry. You can still listen to the game locally without paying if you don't want to. Well, let's get to a timeout. We do owe you a break. When we come back on the other side of this break, we'll play some Change My Mind. And later on in the hour, is the severe cold actually, seriously a bad thing for this game? We'll discuss that coming up later here on 580 Sports Talk. We're just getting things started on this Feel Good Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan. He's Dan. By the way, you'll never believe this. There's another Power 5 head coaching opening with Kalen DeBoer expected to take the Alabama job. Washington has called a team meeting. It's going to happen. He's going to Alabama. You'll never believe this, but Pete Thamel is reporting that both Lance Leipold and Chris Kleiman could be potential coaches for Washington. Incredible. I, for one, cannot believe they would make Pete Thamel's list.
This is your life as a KU and a K-State fan as long as you have a good coach. They are going to be in connection with every Power 2 opening from here till doomsday.
It's almost boring at this point. Like, give me a job that they're not in the running for. For what it's worth, and I just had it here a moment ago, Pete Thamel lists in no order: Lance Leipold, Jed Fish from Arizona, Matt Campbell, Ryan Grubb, that's Washington's offensive coordinator, Barry Odom at UNLV, Chris Kleiman, Kyle Whittingham, Dave Clawson, and Kalani Sitake, all as potential candidates for the Washington job. I have an honest question. Why would most of those guys take that job?
It's a Power 2 job,
I suppose. And that's the big difference there. Like, I could see Fish. I could see Jed Fish being the guy.
And, like, I know this was a surprise to see Washington play for the national championship. In the 10-year history of the college football playoff, it is a small list of schools that have been to the playoff twice.
Mm-hmm.
Washington is on that list.
Yes, they are.
So you can win
with two different coaches.
Yes, with Chris Peterson, and the turnaround under DeBoer after the Jimmy Lake disaster was lightning fast. So you can win and get to the playoff at Washington. So that is an appealing job. That is a job. I know that, like, our generation, like, I'm too young to really remember Don James, but like, for some people, you remember what Ty Whittingham did to that program.
Mm-hmm.
You remember 0-12. Who was the other guy? Keith Gilbertson really ran that thing into the ground. I don't think that is the standard. Like, Washington football can be a big time program.
They absolutely can.
And really right now positioned to be maybe the program on the West Coast.
You do need to hit the portal well, though, whoever the new coach is at Washington, because they are losing everyone.
Yes.
Michael Penix is out of eligibility. Roma Dunze declared for the draft.
They got their quarterback. Will Rogers.
Oh, that's true. They did get okay, so they already got the quarterback. Yeah. Well, but who knows? Because the portal opens again for Washington.
Yeah.
They've got 30 days from now.
Well, Bama doesn't need a quarterback, so
that's true. That's definitely true. So yeah, just if you hear the names Lance Leipold and Chris Kleiman being thrown around, you might just be numb to that at this point. All right, change my mind, and I'm actually going to stick with the same topic. Kalen DeBoer will be fired from Alabama without a national championship.
I'm not changing your mind on that. Like, I think Kalen DeBoer is a good coach.
I think so too.
I don't know that Alabama could have made a better hire. Maybe they could have made a hire as good, but I don't think they make a hire better than a 49-year-old head coach who has won everywhere he has been. You know where Kalen DeBoer has never been? The South.
Yep.
The SEC. This is an entirely different beast. And it's one thing to say you don't want to be the guy that follows the guy. That's like a really easy thing, kind of a cliche thing to say. And at the end of the day, that's not going to keep somebody from being attracted by the job and wanting the job and wanting the challenge, because the promise of Alabama is so great. Mike DuBose won an SEC title.
Yes, he did.
Man, the flop from Up won the SEC before he started messing around with his secretary and then coaching Division III Millsaps College after that. Like, the promise at Alabama is so great. And I'm sure that is what appeals to Kalen DeBoer. But it is, I think, very telling that guys who had some background in the SEC, guys who had some background with Texas, Steve Sarkisian and Dan Lanning, saw that job open and said, I'm going to get a raise at my good job right here.
Mike Norvell too.
Yeah, Mike Norvell. I'm gonna get a raise at the good job I already got. I don't want to be the guy that gets fired because I lost 3 games. Because that is what will happen.
Yep.
They haven't lost 3 games in a season since 2011. Let that happen. Let him lose his first 2 Iron Bowls.
I really like Kalen DeBoer. I think he's a really good coach. I think he's a great offensive coach, especially. He's got no ties to the SEC. The farthest east he's ever been is Indiana as an offensive coordinator, and it is very funny that they kept Tom Allen and let Kalen DeBoer go away. Now, a few years later, he's at Alabama. That is very funny at IU. I saw Dan Orlovsky say this from ESPN. He said, do people worry this is going to turn out like Brian Harsin at Auburn? And I thought this is a ridiculous take. But then I took a moment and thought, well, Harsin was in the Pacific Northwest his whole career. Went to Auburn, didn't have connections, didn't build a good staff. That was really hard. I think there is a tie there. Now, Brian Harsin, by all accounts, is a miserable person who nobody liked. Kalen DeBoer, I have no idea, but it's hard to be as disliked as Brian Harsin was. I also read a report earlier today, and I wish I could source this for you, but I don't remember where I saw it this morning when I got up. Apparently, there is going to be some real work to do on the NIL front at Alabama, because you think, Alabama, why do they need help with that? Well, I guess a lot of the NIL donations and revenue and, flow of cash was tied to Nick Saban. And duh, it's Nick Saban. If you don't have any ties to that area, are you going to be able to generate the same kind of groundswell and cash flow that Nick Saban was able to generate? I don't know if you'd be able to do that. It's just so hard. Georgia is right there with you now in terms of the powers in the SEC. You're adding Texas. You're adding Oklahoma. The arms race is only getting more intense. I don't think he's going to win a national title there. And that's just playing the probability game. And you can be a great coach, not win a national title, and that's not good enough down there. Hell, winning a national title, one of them is not good enough at Alabama. So I just have a hard time seeing this work out.
You can get fired after you win an SEC title. You got to win the right games. Mm-hmm. It's not just winning the right games. It's winning all the games.
Yep.
Like that's where you have to start. And Kalen DeBoer, for as good a head coach I think he is, that's why ultimately I think this is probably a good move for DeBoer, because he's 49 years old. Like, if this doesn't work, if this is 4 years and he goes 2-2 in the Iron Bowl and doesn't make it out of the national semifinals as a head coach, then he can go somewhere else and have a really long and successful career and win a lot of games. It won't be too late for him. This is not a career ender if it doesn't work out for him in Tuscaloosa. For my change my mind, I shared this take when you were not around on Wednesday. I had one person text the show, and I said, "Boy, really going on a limb there, huh?" So maybe it's not a very it's not a controversial take. Yeah, I was getting fried on the text line, but change my mind. Outside of the top 3 AFC seeds and the 49ers, no one else has a realistic chance to win the Super Bowl.
The exception I will give you, and for what it's worth, I do not think they are going to win a Super Bowl. I would put Dallas in the mix. I think Dallas, at its best, is almost there with the 49ers. The 49ers have supreme talent on both sides of the ball. Even if you take the quarterback out of the mix, Dallas is a better quarterback, but still, look at who the running backs are. Look at the offensive line when healthy. Look at the receivers. Look at that defensive side of the ball. Even if they've got some issues defensively, I still think that's one of the best in the NFL. I think Dallas, though, at its best, when they can create turnovers defensively, we know they can get after the quarterback. Now, they got to tackle, and they have really struggled against the run, and that's going to be probably an issue for them against Green Bay this weekend with how well Aaron Jones is playing. But I think when their offense is clicking, when the defense forces turnovers, they can play with and beat anyone. Now, I know they lost to San Francisco. They got whooped by them earlier this season. But I would put them as certainly the 5th out of 5 in that mix. But that's the one team, I think, where you see them at their best, and they can go toe-to-toe in a foot race with anybody.
If I took Ravens, Bills, Chiefs, 49ers, gave you the field, would you take the field?
No. I would not.
If I gave you if I took Ravens 49ers, I gave you the field, would you take the field?
Oh, man. Again, if you just want to play the probability game, I think the answer is probably yes. But I picked them for our Super Bowl matchup, rematch of Super Bowl 47. Ah, God.
Okay, now, last question. Which group would you rather have against the field? Ravens, 49ers, Chiefs? Cowboys, I'll throw the Cowboys in, or Ravens, 49ers, Bills, Cowboys.
I want the former. I want the one with the Chiefs.
Okay.
They've got the pedigree. I need to see Josh Allen get there before I can trust that team, which has a roster that I've said all year I think is really flawed. I need to see them get there. And I don't know that this team is good enough in Buffalo this year to even get to that point, but I've got to see it first. Kind of like Cincinnati. And Cincinnati was red hot at the end of 2021. And we said, well, let's see them beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. And then they did. And then they had a legitimate chance to win that Super Bowl. And they suddenly, they have a seat at the table now because we've seen them win that game. I haven't seen it from Buffalo, and until I do, it's the Chiefs and everybody else as far as I'm concerned. We owe you a timeout, but on the other side of this break, at what point does the severe weather actually become a severe problem for the NFL? That's coming up on 580 Sports Talk. 2:47 on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you. As of approximately 7 o'clock yesterday, I just saw this a little bit delayed. Every single state had some sort of winter weather warning. Some sort of watcher warning was in effect for every single state in the union, at least in the lower 48. Many of them here in the Midwest for winter storm, winter weather advisory, things like that. As we have heard for days now, it is going to be, quote unquote, dangerously cold for Chiefs versus Dolphins on Saturday night. Now, you know how I stand on the matter of weather games and games in the elements, and football's meant to be played outdoors, and real football is played in the snow, in the rain, in the mud, outdoor in the elements. I have seen, however, and maybe this is just a matter of having social media access now relative to past years or being more terminally online now, more pushback on the weather and playing in the elements than I ever have before, with how severe things are supposed to be in Kansas City, and with a winter storm warning in effect in Buffalo too, and the worry that there might be some lake effect snow there. Is there actually a threshold for when this becomes dangerous and the NFL needs to move games? I feel like I've seen so much of this, it has shaken me to my core, and I think, is there a threshold for this?
As far as the play on the field, no, because it's something that both teams have to deal with. And it does affect the game. Like, I think, like, there comes a point, like, when you got a warm weather team coming to a cold weather city, like we have this weekend with Miami coming to play in Kansas City. But more traditionally, like, you've had Miami go up to Buffalo in the playoffs before, or you've had, like Tampa Bay go up to Green Bay, something like that, or a dome team that goes and they play in the elements. Like, there is a certain temperature at which it's no longer really an advantage. It's just cold.
Yep.
It's just cold for everybody. Now, I still think there's an advantage for the Chiefs against the Dolphins because they are relatively healthy and the Dolphins are so beat up that the weather does affect the more injured, less fresh team a little more. But on balance, when you get to wind chills in the negative 20s, that's not an advantage for the home team. That's just cold.
Mm-hmm.
That's just everybody's cold. And so I don't necessarily think that, like, if they get lake effect snow up in Buffalo against Pittsburgh, I'm not just saying this because Pittsburgh's a cold weather team themselves. I don't think necessarily that's this huge advantage for Buffalo, but I do think it's more of an advantage for Kansas City this week because of how beat up Miami is. As far as, like, moving games around, and I know there was the rumor yesterday that floated that they were going to think about moving the Buffalo-Pittsburgh game to Cleveland. I don't know about doing that. Like, it's a lot easier to just say, hey, let's play tomorrow. Like, let's play the next day. Like, that might be. And, like, the NFL has practiced with doing this because they did it in the COVID season. Like, they understood that, hey, we can be a little bit flexible with our schedule if we need to. We can move some games around and people are still going to watch. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a time that it got to that point where the NFL said, hey, let's just, for the sake of the product, for the safety of our fans, like, we'll move a game out of our time slot. We'll play it tomorrow. We'll play it Sunday and have it as a doubleheader, or we'll play it Monday. I could see that, but it would have to be like really to the point where the safety of your players or fans is at stake. Although I think you can debate whether or not the NFL cares all that much whether you show up to the stadium or not, because you already paid for the ticket and there's going to be a huge TV audience. They sold the advertising for that
months, if not years ago. Yeah, that was all sold. I was thinking, well, what if, and I don't necessarily think the Chiefs and the NFL need to move the game, but I thought, what if they move the kickoff up? And I'm sure Peacock would not be happy about that because it'll change the viewership group. But you say, hey, we're going to actually play noon and 4 instead of 4 and 7. And we're going to move the Chiefs game to the afternoon. Sun will be out. It'll be a little warmer. It really won't be, though.
No.
This is according to AccuWeather.com. The wind chill at noon is supposed to be negative 22, at 7 o'clock is supposed to be negative 28. When you're talking about negative 20 whatever, it doesn't really feel different at that point. It's just cold.
Yeah.
And the actual temperature, 0 compared to negative 4. Like, that's the same thing to me.
Yeah.
Once you go below a certain threshold, it's just, no, these are all the same temperatures. Whether I'm getting frostbite or not, it's all the same temperature. I think, honestly, the wind is going to be worse than anything else.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's going to be that cold wind right in your face, right on your neck. Oh, that just sounds terrible.
That's kind of cold that stings. That's kind of cold you feel in your bones.
You're going to see every single player dressed like Kadarius Toney.
Especially in the Midwest. Like I tell people all the time, I grew up in Colorado. It's we get snow. Denver is not in the mountains. Some people have legitimately, like, I'm a grown adult and I'm still surprised sometimes that other grown adults are like, so you lived in the mountains? No. Denver sits at the foot of the mountains. It's not really it's not a mountain town, not a ski resort, man. And the suburbs definitely aren't. But we get some cold weather. We had some memorable blizzards. Some times when it was really, really cold. But I tell people all the time, Midwestern cold, different kind of cold because the humidity factors in. That moisture in the air. It's a wet cold, and you feel that to the marrow. So the kind of cold it's going to be is going to be highly unpleasant. I was talking earlier about, hey, take your opportunity now to go see the Chiefs outside the playoffs. Man, do as I say, not as I am not planning to do, because that doesn't sound like any kind of fun to me either, if we're being completely honest. No. But I know there are some people out there who are built for it.
We've got a comment here from Vance. Says some of the pushback may be due to the fact that millionaires are playing the game now. The risk of the injury is higher in the cold weather. That's like, you do worry about guys getting hurt. That turf, someone is going to have, I'm not predicting someone's going to have, a career-ending or season-ending injury or something, but someone is going to have to leave this game because of a rolled ankle or a knee or something. Like, if you're Miami, how do you play Javon Holland in this game for his own sake? If he's not practicing all week and he's got 2 bad knees on that turf, how do you let him play on that? I don't think you can. I wouldn't let. Honestly, I know they're so banged up, and I know Miami doesn't want to punt on this game, but if I'm the Dolphins, I'm not letting any of these questionable guys play this game. Not on that turf. It's going to be so unpleasant. And for their own safety, I would not want to do that if I was the Dolphins. Coming up in the 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, the NFL All-Pro teams were announced today by the Associated Press. We'll tell you who from the Chiefs did or did not make the All-Pro teams and break down the rest of the positions. We've also got On Second Thought and our Chiefs Insider with Matt Derrick coming up next hour. We'd love to hear from you, your thoughts on Chiefs versus Dolphins this weekend. Hit us up on the text line, 785-272-9429, or drop us a line in the YouTube comment section on our YouTube live stream. Just go to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk, subscribe, and you can check out the live stream today. We've got to take a break for the news, but we'll come back with the 3 o'clock hour right after that of 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, it's the 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk on this Red Friday and Feel Good Friday edition of the show. Thanks so much for spending some time with us today. Chiefs versus Dolphins coming up tomorrow. Super wild card weekend. Of course, you can catch that game right here on 580 WIBW. We'll talk some more Chiefs football and some all-pros coming up here in just a moment. Also this hour, we'll play on Second Thought, look back on some recent takes that we would like to take back. And Matt Derrick will join us for our Chiefs Insider on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline coming up in a little bit as well. Plus, we'll get to your texts. 785-272-9429 is our text line number. And you can also find us as well on YouTube. Just head to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk. Make sure you subscribe while you are over there. We will get to this again coming up in headlines, but I want to outline it right now in case you are thinking about going out to a high school basketball game tonight. We do know that our game of the week, is still on. Our Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader, Seaman versus Shawnee Heights. Pregame will start at about 5:30. with game one tip at about 5:45. And again, Dan will be on the call of that one with the coach, Larry Latimer.
No Lat this week.
Oh, no Lat this week.
No Lat this week. He's still out ill. So, unfortunately, Lat will not be joining me, but, sends his regards. And I know we all join all of you listeners in hoping that he gets well soon.
Oh, my mistake. And I do hope Lat feels better soon. So it'll be Dan on the call for tonight's game.
Yeah, you're stuck with me.
No, not stuck with you. A lot of teams around the city, though, not playing tonight. I wanted to touch on these real quick. City teams that are not playing today and the fates of their games. Topeka West, their tilt with Kansas City Piper tonight. Those games have been postponed, boys and girls, until Thursday, February 1st. That's a Thursday game there for Topeka West. We also know that in Highland Park and Harmon, there's another city team for you. Their game has been postponed today. Non-city, but in the Centennial League and certainly within our listening area, Emporia versus Junction City, their games have been postponed for today. Around the county, Rossville has moved their games up. The varsity action for Rossville will begin at 4:30 today. So that's less than an hour and a half from now instead of their usual 6 o'clock start time. Also, Washburn Rural and Manhattan, their games have been outright canceled. They will not be made up. So that is your latest update. It's
interesting. The two league opponents would cancel tonight.
I thought the same thing. I felt the same way.
Yeah, hopefully that's a misapplication of the word, and that maybe they can be made up somewhere down the road.
So we will continue to update you as we get further updates for ourselves. But again, our Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader is still a go for tonight. Seaman versus Shawnee Heights with the one and only Dan Lucero coming up tonight at 5:30. That's when our pregame coverage will begin. The Associated Press All-Pro teams that came out today. And the first thing I do when I see these is I look for Chiefs and I look for Packers because I care about the Packers on an emotional level and I cover the Kansas City Chiefs. So on the offensive side of the ball, it was very strange to see. Not only was there no Patrick Mahomes, which is not a surprise this year, to be completely honest with you, but also no Travis Kelce. Dan, when was the last time that Travis Kelce was not an All-Pro?
Barack Obama was still president. It was 2015.
Yeah, and would still be president for another whole year,
yes.
In fact.
Yes, there was still another year left in his administration, the last time that Travis Kelce did not receive first or second team All-Pro honors.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it's actually kind of funny to look at on his Pro Football Reference. Kelce alternated All-Pro first team and second team every year up until this year when he just did not make an All-Pro team.
Wow.
That is incredible. Just an unreal run of success for Travis Kelce.
And it should be noted that Kelce was first team All-Pro from his peers. The Players Union has started doing their own All-Pro honors. I think this was the second year that they did those. And Kelce was the first team tight end. So it is interesting that among his peers, there is a recognition that Travis Kelce is still great. From the voting media, I think you probably look at his numbers, fact that he didn't score a touchdown final 9 weeks of the year, fact that he missed 2 games, and say, George Kittle, Sam Laporta, both produced at a bit of a higher level this year than Travis Kelce. And those two are your All-Pro tight ends. Kittle, the first team tight end, and Laporta as a rookie, the second team tight end. But that recognition from Kelsey's peers, I think that is reflected in how teams game plan the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
That is like, I always say this, like, players know who's good.
Yes.
Nobody knows who's good better than the guys who play against him every week, the guys who have to game plan against him every week. So that is a pretty neat honor for Kelsey to receive, even if the AP honor eluded him this year.
Now, I will say this as well. The AP gave an all-pro nod to Sam Laporta at tight end, who is a rookie. And Laporta has been awesome. He has been fantastic this season. How many rookies got all-pro nods from the NFLPA list?
I'm going to guess none.
You are correct. And I think, that's why more data points are good, because you can cross-compare and you can say, well, you got this and not this. Why is that? What is, a guy who ends up getting first team all over, Lamar Jackson, got first team from his peers, got first team from the media. Yeah, no duh. He's obviously your first team all-pro quarterback for this year, no matter where you want to look at it. Travis Kelce, though, maybe that's an example of the players are less likely to vote for a rookie and are more likely to vote for a respected veteran like Travis Kelce, who, by the way, had a really good year. 15 games, 984 yards, 5 touchdowns. That's a good year for a tight end. It might not be the guy who 2 of the prior 3 years had gotten Offensive Player of the Year votes good, but it's still a really good showing by Kelce overall, with all things considered. And he still averaged, almost 66 yards a game. It was a good season for Kelce, but he does not make the list. Patrick Mahomes also doesn't make the list. When was the last time Mahomes was not an all-pro?
2 years ago.
21. Yeah. He was just a Pro Bowler.
So yeah, three out of his 6 seasons as a starter, he has not made AP All-Pro.
That's interesting. But it's also so hard for quarterback, because it's essentially the guy who wins MVP and then the runner-up for MVP.
Right.
That's essentially who your all-pros are.
Even a guy like Tom Brady, like, you think Brady was excellent for 20 years. How many times was he would he have been an all-pro? 3 times.
That's wild. So did he only win 3 MVPs?
Yeah. 3 MVPs. He was first team all-pro all of those years. He was second team all-pro in 05 and 21. So 6 all-pros.
Okay.
Only 3 times a first team all-pro. And we're talking about Tom Brady here. Like, I would wager a guess that the all-time leader in first team all-pro quarterback, first of all, be interested to see who it was. Montana, probably.
I was gonna guess it might be Aaron Rodgers. He won 4 MVPs.
4 MVPs, yeah. Peyton Manning 7-time.
Okay, that's outrageous.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Peyton won 5 MVPs.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, he was 4 too.
Yeah, so he's got 5 MVPs. He was 7-time first team all-pro. Rodgers.
So he, a quarterback in the modern era, was first up twice and didn't win MVP.
Yeah,
that's wow. One of those must have been Adrian Peterson.
That would be my guess. Rodgers 4-time All-Pro, matching his MVP years. Manning was first team All-Pro, did not win MVP in 2005, which I think is the Adrian Peterson year, and also in 2012. No, that was the Adrian Peterson year.
Yeah.
2005 would have been Sean Alexander.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought it would have been. Are those the only running backs to have won since?
I think so.
Barry Sanders?
LaDainian Tomlinson.
Oh, LT won.
Yeah, LT won one in 07. Whatever year he broke Alexander's rushing touchdown record.
It was the next year. In fact, it was 06.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, back-to-back running backs won. That's crazy. That is just unbelievable.
So, yeah, it's really hard to make first team All-Pro. Like, you feel like a player at the end of their career should have, like, a whole bunch of those. It's like all NBA.
Mm-hmm.
You like, All-Pro is how you measure who goes to the Hall of Fame. Like, Pro Bowl is how you measure who was a good player and a good player in a given year, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But All-Pros, that's how you divide the Hall of Famers. Like, if there's a really good player, but they weren't an All-Pro, that's probably not going to Canton.
Yeah.
So the All-Pro honors, those really mean something. If you're an All-Pro from the Associated Press, either first or second team, that's your Hall of Fame case. That's kind of where it starts.
Yeah, I know. I would agree with that. I think I've said this take before. I think Pro Bowls matter in bunches.
Yes,
like
I agree 100%.
If you play 14 years and you made 10 Pro Bowls, then I think that says, okay, that to me is a measure of consistency, because while the fan voting is not always a great representation of who the actual best players are, I think that tells you the public knew you were good enough to be in that category for a decade. That's meaningful.
Yeah. Russell Wilson went to 9 Pro Bowls in 10 years in Seattle, but was only a second team All-Pro one time.
Wow. What year was that?
19.
Man, that's crazy. That's really, really crazy. I would have thought he might have been another second teamer a little bit earlier than that.
He had 3 top 4 finishes in the Offensive Player of the Year voting, but
just constantly on the cusp. Constantly right there.
Famously has never received a vote for MVP until next year when he quarterbacks the Falcons to an NFC South championship. I'm on the bandwagon, baby.
That'd be a great story. It really would be. Other Chiefs who made All-Pro. Joe Thuney at left guard. Not a surprise there. He's awesome. Always has been. On defense on the first team, Chris Jones. Pause there. Aaron Donald and Chris Jones were your first team All-Pro interior linemen. Does that feel accurate, or does that feel like career achievement?
Aaron Donald did have 8 sacks this year.
But
yeah, like it didn't feel like, and I maybe this is on me for not watching the Rams enough, but it certainly felt like this is a year where his skills maybe started to diminish a little bit. Like, I'd have been fine with Dexter Lawrence getting that spot.
I agree.
Maybe there is a bit of career achievement. By the way, that is now 7 first. Well, no, check that. They haven't updated the badge yet. 8 first team All-Pros for Aaron Donald in 10 seasons.
I, for what it's worth, would have been content with either of the second teamers being put over either Jones or Donald. Justin Madubuike was awesome for Baltimore this year.
100%.
Absolutely awesome. I would have been content, honestly, just putting the second teamers on the first team and the first teamers on the second team. But Chris Jones, very cool for him. Glad he's closer to getting a bonus as well. Chiefs also ended up with a cornerback who was a first team All-Pro. Slot corner Trent McDuffie. First of all, bold predictions, start of the year. I did say Trent McDuffie would be an All-Pro.
We both had like at least one Chiefs defensive player we thought was going to level up to All-Pro caliber this year. My pick was Nick Bolton. Maybe he gets there if he hadn't gotten hurt.
Yeah,
maybe not.
Yeah, but you get a wash for that one. He was hurt for a long time.
He was. I get a redo. I get a reset on that one. But yeah, Trent McDuffie. Now, I think this is the first year that slot corner has been its own position in the All-Pro voting.
I think you're right about that.
So it's a new spot, and it's interesting because I don't think that's where we all thought McDuffie was going to start the year as the slot guy. We thought, well, McDuffie on the outside and L'Jarius Sneed is the slot guy. No, L'Jarius Sneed spent this season cosplaying Darrelle Revis and locking people down all over the field. So McDuffie moved to the slot, was really good, was effective as a blitzer, forced 4 fumbles, I think, something like that.
I think so.
And had a really strong year. Even it's amazing you'd be first team All-Pro, you'd pick off a pass.
Yeah, that's insane. That really is insane.
Where you contrast that too with Deron Bland, who's a first team All-Pro because he picked off like every pass.
I don't know. I mean, he set the record for pick sixes, which is not the kind of thing. Well, if you take away all the times he returned the ball for touchdowns, no, that's pretty important. That's how you win football games, is scoring touchdowns and scoring points. I mean, is Deron Bland that good of a cover guy that he could have made it if he only had like 3 picks and no touchdowns this year? I don't know.
I don't necessarily think he is, because he's now got 14 interceptions in 2 seasons.
That's nuts.
And sometimes if you're intercepting that many passes, it's because teams aren't afraid to try you. Like it's a bit of a catch-22. Like intercepting passes, objectively good. If you're doing that at a high volume, you're stealing possessions for your own team, you're limiting possessions for the other team. It's good to intercept passes. But if you're the guy who keeps intercepting a bunch of them year after year, like D'Angelo Hall, like that means they look at your matchup and say, yeah, we can get this guy. And yes, you're proving them wrong. And maybe next year we look up and, wow, is Deron Bland bad? He only intercepted 1 pass this year. Oh, no, maybe he's now got a reputation that
Mhm.
is affecting how teams attack him and attack the Dallas defense. But that is an interesting thought because like Trevon Diggs, who got hurt this year, it was the same conversation when he had all those interceptions as a rookie. Like, is he really good or is he just getting picked on and is the beneficiary of some bad throws in his direction where guys with fewer interceptions might be better players because nobody's bothering to throw their way?
Do you remember when D'Angelo Hall intercepted Jay Cutler 4 times in one game?
I do remember that.
That might be the funniest football game I've ever watched at the NFL level. They just kept throwing at him, and he kept picking it off over and over. It was unbelievably funny.
But this is the kind of thing that happens. Like Richard Sherman, my favorite cornerback of all time. He was back-to-back first-team All-Pro, 2012, 2013, had 8 interceptions both of those years. The years following, 4, 2, 4, 2 interceptions. Like, and one of those, he had 2 picks in a game in a season where he played half the year.
Mhm.
But like after 3 seasons, they got the idea. We're not throwing anywhere near this guy anymore. We're not giving him a chance.
No, that's the funny thing about cornerback. We talked about this with the Big 12 this year, that Kobe Bryant is clearly really well respected in the Big 12 because he was barely thrown at all year because teams knew he was good in coverage. It's the same way at the NFL. Dudes just don't throw at you anymore if you're playing that well and locking down an entire side of the field. It's hard for me to not see L'Jarius Sneed on here because McDuffie deserved it because I thought he had a great year. And again, that's a slightly different position. Deron Bland had all those pick sixes. Obviously, he's going to make All-Pro. Sauce Gardner, not as good as he was as a rookie, I think, but still had a really good year. He's now the first player, I think, ever to have back-to-back first-team All-Pros to begin a career at cornerback, which is a pretty big deal, obviously. But, man, L'Jarius Sneed was so good. He didn't make second team either. Your second-team cornerbacks on the All-Pro list, Jalen Johnson in Chicago, old friend Charvarius Ward in San Francisco, and then the slot corner was Taron Johnson in Buffalo, or Taron Johnson, excuse me. I don't know.
Sneed didn't miss by much. Like they put the vote totals out, and Sneed didn't miss by a lot, but he did miss, and that's unfortunate because I think that just to be like real blunt about it, probably cost him some money because he's going into free agency, and you can ask for a little more if you've got All-Pro next to your name as a cornerback. So just from that perspective, I'm disappointed for L'Jarius Sneed, but I mean, if you've been watching Chiefs games, and the thing that has been glaring about how the Chiefs defense has played is the opponent's standout wide receiver never really does anything. Justin Jefferson didn't do anything. A.J. Brown didn't do anything. Jamar Chase didn't do much of anything. Devontae Adams didn't do much of anything in either meeting. Those star wide receivers, and there are a lot more. Amon-Ra St. Brown was first team All-Pro this year. Didn't do a whole lot against the Chiefs. Stephon Diggs erased in that game against the Chiefs. Number ones all across the league. The Arrowhead is where they went to disappear and to get some cardio in for 60 minutes because L'Jarius Sneed was that good. And with respect to Deron Bland, who intercepted a lot of passes, and Sauce Gardner, who is an outstanding player and very good in the Buffalo Wild Wings commercial he's in. Plays a great straight man to the giant talking buffalo with wings.
Although kind of weird that he keeps caping for passing or for roughing the passer. He's like, no, it's roughing the passer. No,
yeah, defensive player. You'd think he'd go to bat for his guys. With respect to those guys, I would have voted L'Jarius Sneed first team, and I wouldn't have had to think too hard about it. But there were a lot of really good cornerbacks this year. Like Jalen Johnson was awesome. Charvarius Ward is the best part of that San Francisco secondary and is deserving. Patrick Surtain had a great year in Denver. Didn't get a sniff. He's not on the team. Like when you only honor 4 guys plus the 2 slot guys, there's gonna be snubs. There's no third team. Maybe there should be.
Yeah, really. Maybe there should be.
League's big enough now.
Yeah, or at least honorable mentions or something at every spot. Here's the other one. At first blush, it feels like it's a snub. Harrison Butker didn't make either first team or second team All-Pro, but are you putting him over Brandon Aubrey in Dallas or Jake Elliott in Philly?
Brandon Aubrey only missed like 2 kicks. They were at the end of the year. Butker only missed 2 kicks all year. That's hard. I mean, kicker's hard, because they're so good anymore. Like, there's not the separation you had between the guys who were like legitimately excellent and the guys who just kind of bounced around the league.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be kickers would play for like 5 different teams because you get tired of your kicker.
Right.
Now we're in an age of kickers who stay on the same team for 20 years.
I can't complain about Brandon Aubrey being first team. He went 36 of 38. He was 10 of 10 from 50 plus. He had never played football until he showed up at the USFL.
Yeah.
He was a soccer player in college, and he's remarkable. 10 of 10 on 50 plus for the year. Anyone else, not necessarily a Chief, but anyone else who had felt like got snubbed or you were surprised to see on one of the All-Pro teams?
Not necessarily. I was happy to see Bobby Wagner get there for a 10th time. Again, bit of a tackle merchant at this stage of his career. The speed is just gone. I mean, he's 34. The speed's gone.
Yeah.
Like the explosiveness with which he used to run down plays, sniff them out in the backfield isn't there. Still as good a tackler, still as smart a player as anyone in the league. And again, bolstering the Hall of Fame case. At this point, Bobby Wagner is going to walk in the first year he's on the ballot. That will make me happy as a fan of his. I was a little surprised to see him honored, but still happy to see it.
I think, and this is not meant to be a slight at Bobby Wagner or his career, because he is a Hall of Famer for sure. I wonder if that has to do with the fact that what was once one of the glamour positions in the NFL and in football has just been so devalued. Like, how many linebackers can you name around the league? Like Bobby Wagner, sure. We know the Chiefs. We know Fred Warner because he's that good.
Right.
Roquan Smith, you've probably heard of.
How many like middle linebackers are household names? Where like that when I was growing up, like you had Junior Seau and Zach Thomas and Levon Kirkland in Pittsburgh. Like you knew who all these guys were.
Ray Lewis, Brian Urlacher.
Yeah, you knew the middle linebacker of the great defenses, and even Wagner in on the Legion of Boom was such an integral part of that. But the game has evolved even in the 10 years since then to where, off-ball linebacker maybe devalued a little bit. And I don't think it's a mistake that the teams that have really good ones are also really good, because the middle of the field is so valuable for offenses these days. And the best off-ball linebackers now are the guys who just take that away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The guy who I think was true, I mean, he was great. And I would consider him at least a borderline, if not shoe-in Hall of Fame candidate. He retired early because he had 400 concussions.
Luke Kuechly.
Luke Kuechly would still be an all-pro today with that skill set, because he was a linebacker who, it wasn't just, he can get to a running back or a tight end in space. No, he could legitimately cover even slow wide receivers.
He was always in the right place. Yeah. And that's Fred Warner. That's why he's the best in the game. Like, he is always in the right place. He's never out of position. He doesn't miss tackles. He can cover. He can pass rush. Like, there's nothing he can't do. The best of the best are like that. Bobby Wagner in his prime was like that. Quincy Williams for the Jets, first team All-Pro this year. He's like that. But more and more often, that was the glamour position on defense. And now it's edge and corner.
How many fans, and I'm not talking about like people who dedicate their lives to being football fans, but like watch every Sunday, maybe miss a game here or there, maybe tunes into a sports talk show casually, isn't watching highlights all day long. How many slightly above average fans know who Quincy Williams is?
Ain't not a household name.
They might say, do you mean Quinnen? And you say, no, that's his brother. But like that it's just so different nowadays. And you're right. It's the edge guys. It's the pass rushers, the elite corner who are the household names now. Nope. There's no Urlachers out there, which, for some reasons may be better than others. Let's get to a timeout. We'll owe you a break. We will get to a little round of On Second Thought coming up next. And then Matt Derrick will join us coming up here on 580 Sports Talk. All right, real quick. This isn't an on second thought, but I do have a trivia question for you. Who is the last rookie tight end to be an All-Pro before Sam Laporta this year?
Last rookie tight end to be an All-Pro?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I should know this. How far back am I having to go?
2002.
Gosh, that is a long way back.
He was a high-profile player for a minute and then just totally disappeared.
Oh, I got nothing.
Jeremy Shockey.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that adds up. God, he was awesome.
He was such a hot shot when he entered the NFL. It was like the next big thing.
Mm-hmm.
He was going to change football as a tight end. Had a few good years and then just disappeared.
Yeah. The beatings took their toll. And I will always remember Jeremy Shockey for doing a little celebration dance into the camera while Jay Feely missed another field goal behind him in that game where Feely missed 3 game-winning field goal attempts and Seattle beat him in overtime in the Super Bowl year, 2005.
That's very funny.
He did a little, he was pointing to the camera, doing a dance, and then he heard the crowd roar and turn around, and Feely shanked another one.
My on second thought is pretty easy. I thought KU was going to wipe the floor with UCF this week. I think most people did, and I was wrong. That was really, really bad.
Yeah, that's my on second thought too. I wish my wallet had an on second thought, and my wallet could say, "Yeah, you were sure wrong about that." And I'm a little lighter today because of your assuredness. Everything went wrong after they took that 16-point lead, and we talked to CJ Moore about it. UCF had played 0 defensive possessions all season in his own. And then they came out in it. And they ran it well, but KU was obviously unprepared for it, which is wild to me that, you got to have something.
You'd think.
You got to have, a little bit to work. You've got to know. When you're a team like Kansas, you're going to play teams that you just overmatch talent-wise. They're going to throw junk at you. You should be ready for it after all these years.
You'd think.
You would think.
We'll talk a little more college hoops next hour. First, though, we've got to get to a break, and we'll get to Matt Derrick, our Chiefs insider, coming up on 580 Sports Talk. Derrick. He covers the Kansas City Chiefs for ChiefsDigest.com, and he is our Chiefs insider, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline, like he does every Friday at this time. Matt, how are you doing staying warm this week?
Better than I expected, and I am very thankful that I will have a seat in the press box and that my toughest part of tomorrow will be walking from my car to the elevator.
Well, I was going to say, Matt, make sure you're bundled up for that.
Yeah, I'll be layered. Don't worry, I'll be layered for that walk. So it's a challenge, but I'm up for it.
Are you a scarf guy when it's cold out?
No, and foolishly, I'm not much of a headwear guy either. I mean, I will put on a cap when it's cold, but I don't usually wear a hat like a winter hat because it just messes up my hair too much. There's too much static playing and all that nonsense and everything. And then my hair just sticks up the rest of the day. And I can very rarely find earmuffs that are big enough for my 7 7/8 head. So I'm not much of a headwear guy.
Now, I can understand that.
You got to get Matt nice, like pashmina, something to.
Yeah, I mean, some real designer.
A scarf for me is just a little too dainty, but I get it. I mean, especially if you're skiing, I get it.
I'm not a scarf guy. My coat, though, my winter coat, if you zip it all the way up, it covers the whole neck. I don't know if it's supposed to be a ski jacket or what, but that's what I usually go with.
I'm wearing a balaclava right now. Like I've got the.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
I got the neck gear going today. It was that cold when I went outside. So I got the balaclava going, but sometimes it's very cozy around my neck. I just kind of leave it on.
You could look like Kadarius Toney, Matt, and have the balaclava on because he's always covered up.
Yeah, I mean, I will say the one thing that football players have, especially quarterbacks have, I want to just have during the winters a mop. I mean, I want to be able to just put my hands in a pouch and everything like that in front of me. That would be ideal for staying warm.
We're chatting with Matt Derrick. He is our Chiefs insider. Check out all of his work covering the Kansas City Chiefs over at ChiefsDigest.com. Matt, just from a big picture perspective on this game, and I feel like a lot of times when we, and I say we as people who follow the NFL or cover the NFL, talk about a game where it's so one-sided and no duh, the Chiefs are going to win this. It's going to be a blowout. The Dolphins don't have any sort of good matchup here. It always swings the other way because that's how sports and that's how the NFL work. But I just have such a hard time finding an area in this game where the Dolphins have some sort of advantage over the Chiefs. Are you feeling the same way about this matchup?
Generally speaking, I mean, there's only one area where I feel like that the Dolphins might have at least an element of surprise, and it's maybe not even the right word, but the Chiefs didn't see Devon Achane the last time around, and he's, I think, the last couple of weeks shown signs of playing much better football than he did at first coming back from the injury. His speed can be a game breaker, and the Chiefs, I mean, one weakness they have had, especially I think since Brian Cook's injury, has been being susceptible a little bit in the ground game and being, having running backs beat them. So that would be the one concern because I think this game is going to come down to one play. And if, early in the game, the Chiefs are still kind of feeling their jabs a little bit and testing their eyes and Achane all of a sudden, breaks loose and just not used to his speed and can't make an adjustment, that could be the one play that turns it. So, I mean, that's the one thing I feel like that if you told me that Achane ends up having a big game, that's what I think it has to happen for the Dolphins to win this one.
Where do you stand on the Chiefs' run defense, which, if you look at the metrics, has not been very good against the ground game this season, against that Dolphins rushing attack, which can be good, although Raheem Mostert a little bit banged up going into this game. Achane should be good to go. Where do you stand in regard to, is that possibly a fatal flaw for the Chiefs in this game, or is it just a business as usual? Yeah, it might not kill you, but you still have to take care of it kind of matchup?
I mean, I think it's the latter for me. I mean, I don't think that it's a fatal flaw, if anything. And I mean, I may be mistaken. I mean, I feel like that a lot of the Chiefs' problems in the run game, you can probably point in two directions. And one of them is, having, Nick Bolton out for 9 games, as well as Drew Tranquill played. I mean, I think he's the better run defender. And then, late in the season, you're playing without Brian Cook. I think those are two of your biggest keys in run defense. And, luckily the Chiefs really didn't have to play without them both. I think that would be a real struggle. But I think they also found answers to that as they kind of went along. I mean, they certainly did it kind of game to game a little bit. I think that definitely, I mean, again, Buffalo, I think they were definitely missing Brian Cook, and there's some other games where I think that you could see from play to play that they kind of missed him. But I think that since Steve Spagnuolo and the defense kind of figured things out a little bit, so I don't think it's the fatal flaw. But I do see why, because hey, they have been susceptible play to play sometimes on the ground.
It is hard to throw the ball when it is this cold or going to be this cold out. It's harder to grip and rip for a quarterback, and it's really hard to hang on to even with gloves for a wide receiver. That being said, the Dolphins are going to suit up you and Dan at edge rusher coming up tomorrow because they just don't have anybody else out there except for the corpse of Emmanuel Ogbah.
I didn't consent to this. It's going to be too cold out there.
You're going to get a paycheck, though.
Ooh, that is a good point.
Playoff game check coming your way.
I can be bought.
So you might need to send some extra blitzes at Patrick Mahomes, Matt, if you're the Dolphins defense and Vic Fangio, who doesn't often love to blitz, but might need you to generate pressure. But Patrick Mahomes kills the blitz. Do you think this might be, relative to the conditions, a big opportunity for a big day for Mahomes?
Well, it very well could be. I mean, it wouldn't it be irony of ironies that on this day, on Saturday, that the Chiefs receivers just catch everything that's thrown their way. That would be an amazing twist of fate. But and you make a good point, which is that with all the substitutions that the Dolphins are going to have to make on the defensive side, they've got so many guys who have not. They're going to have guys rushing the quarterback who don't even probably know their teammates. And certainly don't even know the playbooks. I mean, if Justin Houston and Bruce Irvin are out there, I mean, all you can do is just say, hey, guys, the quarterback's that way, go get him. And that's a hard way to play defense, especially because, hey, the Dolphins would expect to play, the same kind of way that a lot of teams have played against them, certainly the way that they did the first time around. You're going to play a lot of zone, and zone defense depends on, people knowing their assignments and guarding their part of the field. And occasionally that will mean an edge rusher is going to need to drop back, and sometimes they need to be in a specific spot. And really, a lot of the ways that teams have defended the Chiefs this year, it's depended on really setting a hard edge so that you keep Mahomes kind of hemmed in, you make him hold on to the football until you can get there with 4, and you're dropping your 7 in zone and playing defense that way. And I think that's hard to do when you don't have the chemistry and guys that are on the same page together. So, I mean, I think that Vic Fangio is going to have a really hard time with that. And he kind of, talked about that a little bit this week too. I think that's their challenge as far as, making sure that the Chiefs don't bust them in some coverages and just have some busted plays, because I think that's where there's some opportunities. But the other thing with Fangio is that he's also going to throw some things at Mahomes that he hasn't seen before. I mean, he's going to throw the kitchen sink at him. They have to. I mean, their backs are against the wall, especially with the injuries. So, I mean, there are going to be some surprises the Dolphins have in store.
Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk, as he does every Friday on the program at this time. Find Matt's work covering the Chiefs at ChiefsDigest.com and check him out on Twitter at Matt Derrick. So we expect surprises from the Dolphins, sure. What kind of surprises might we see from the Chiefs? What might Andy Reid have spent the last week dialing up to try and defeat Fangio's defense, or try and slow down, or what Steve Spagnuolo might have drawn up to try and slow down this Dolphins offense?
Yeah, I'm really intrigued, especially offensively, just to see how the Chiefs do attack the Dolphins. I mean, I feel like still that their best chances of moving the football effectively is just to do it in chunks and be fairly judicious with the football. Just get the ball out in space to some of these playmakers like Rashee Rice and let them work. I mean, even Travis Kelce. It can be quick hitters, and if you need to use Kelce as a decoy that gets everybody else open, I mean, you might have to do that. I mean, the Dolphins are going to give him a lot of attention. You know that, and it's going to be everybody else is going to be facing single coverage, so they should be able to beat that. I gotta feel that with the way that the Chiefs really built in McCole Hardman in the Week 18 against the Chargers, either that was just a beautiful bluff, or they intend to use him in some very specific ways. I mean, I'm not thinking that it's going to be a McCole Hardman heavy diet of targets or anything, but I absolutely feel like that they were trying to get him up to speed, whether it's just using him on the end arounds and the jet sweep, putting him in motion, or just getting him the ball in space, taking some deep shots. I mean, I think that will be difficult to do, not even just because of the cold, but because of the wind on Saturday. But I think there's going to be some different play calling than we have seen of late. I mean, I think that the Chiefs know that. I think they know they have to be a little bit more outside the box And I think that at least we've seen in recent weeks a kind of a commitment to be a little bit more ball control. And Matt Nagy, one of the things he said this week is that that's exactly what they have to do. They have to protect the football. And that, I think, above anything else, is going to be a big key to victory for this team.
Is Isaiah Pacheco the perfect kind of running back to have for a cold weather game against a beat-up defense?
I certainly would like to have him because that's what I mean, in a game especially like this, in a cold weather game, like Andy Reid said this week, you can't bank on the cold doing your job for you, but the cold can help you do your job. And I think that defensively that's one way, but offensively, yeah, I mean, having Pacheco who can just go out there and plow into some linebackers and plow through some defensive backs, that's going to feel even worse in the cold. And Isaiah Pacheco, New Jersey born and bred, is not going to blink in this weather. So I mean, I think he's going to be excited. I think he's going to be pumped for it, and he's going to probably drive the Dolphins crazy because they're going to hit him. They're going to feel it. And he's just going to pop up and smile at him.
When you look at the margins in this game, the stuff that happens on the margins, you already spoke about the Chiefs knowing that they can't afford to turn the ball over, a lesson that this season has taught them very painfully at a lot of different junctures this year. Where are the advantages you see for the Chiefs on the margins in this game, the little things that might be able to give them an edge on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, a couple of them are going to be in just how they are able to protect Mahomes. That's an advantage with everything that the Dolphins have problems with. And obviously that means that the one guy you definitely have to be most worried about in the Dolphins is Christian Wilkins in the middle. Now you can maybe shed your protection a little bit. But to me, that means that it's even more, now incumbent upon your tackles to have really good days. I mean, I think that, the Dolphins' strength of their pass rush is going to be on the interior. So, you probably have to commit some resources there. If Juwan Taylor and Donovan Smith have good days, then Mahomes may have all the time in the world to throw the football. And if that's the case, then I think only good things can happen for the Chiefs. And on the other side, I think that obviously the Chiefs defense is what's going to win them football games. But to me, it's probably the little things on defense that are going to come through. I mean, if they can create another turnover like they did against Tyreek, that's going to be it. I mean, this is a good Chiefs defense, but it hasn't been a turnover crazy team. But if they're able to get that one turnover, and like I said, I feel like that the turnover margin is going to determine this game. I will be absolutely stunned if the winner of this game loses the turnover margin. I just don't think either team is good enough to overcome that kind of deficit. So to me, that's what it really comes down to. I mean, if you can protect Mahomes, protect the football on the offensive side, and if you can get the football away, even once, I think that's enough for the Chiefs defense to hang their hat on.
We're joined by Matt Derrick, our Chiefs insider who covers the Kansas City Chiefs for ChiefsDigest.com. He joins us every Friday at this time on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Matt, why is this Chiefs team bad at forcing turnovers?
I don't really know because, they've got some guys I think are pretty good ball hawks. Trent McDuffie, chief amongst them. He obviously has a sense for the ball and can get it on the ground. One side of it might be just that it's maybe bad luck, because sometimes turnovers are luck. We'll see teams that from one season to the next, there's no consistency, that maybe they'll have a bunch of turnovers one year and none the next. I think the remarkable thing about this team is that how good the Chiefs pass rush has been the last 2 years. The finished second in sacks each of the last 2 years. That's pretty crazy to me. That's hard to do sometimes. And so maybe it is. Maybe it's just one of those things that come in bunches. Maybe we're going to see here, next year when the Chiefs, secondary is a little bit more mature, and maybe that's another key to it. They've got, outside of Justin Reed, really, L'Jarius Sneed, your old man back there, is 4-year veteran. You got Mike Edwards, but maybe it's just one of those things that a lot of turnovers come with savvy and wisdom. So maybe they'll come in bunches down the road, but I can't really put a finger on why they haven't been good at it.
All right, Matt, let's get a prediction. Chiefs are favored at home in the freezing cold by 4.5 over the Miami Dolphins. Do they get the job done?
Yeah, I think they do. And that number, I probably like the Dolphins because I think it is going to be a close game, come down to the wire. I don't really expect either team to break out. I mean, if one of these offenses has a big day, I would think that it's the Chiefs offense at home. But I think it's going to be a close one. And even with the weather, I think the kickers are going to get involved. I think the Chiefs win by a Harrison Butker field goal, 23-20.
Harrison Butker, one of a couple of potentially deserving Chiefs who did not make an all-pro team, but arguably the biggest snub, Matt, L'Jarius Sneed. Should he have been at least a second-team all-pro this year?
No, absolutely. I mean, I would have made him the first team for sure. And I understand, hey, Deron Bland had a bunch of interceptions, so that's why he made the team. But I think he came in fifth in the voting, and because they have a slot corner spot this year, it's crazy that Trent McDuffie is an all-pro and L'Jarius Sneed's not. I mean, Trent had a great year, but L'Jarius had a better one. And no, I mean, I think I would be hard-pressed to tell you that there were 4 players in this league who had a better year than L'Jarius did at corner. I could give you 2 for maybe, but I can't give you all 4 of those guys.
Nobody covers the Kansas City Chiefs better than Matt Derrick. He does it for ChiefsDigest.com. He joins us every Friday at this time on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline for our Chiefs Insider. Make sure you're following Matt as well on Twitter. At Matt Derrick is his handle. As always, Matt, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it. Enjoy the game on Saturday night, and enjoy the fact that you will get to be there in person and don't have to get Peacock to watch it.
I will be very grateful of that, and I hope everybody stays warm because it is going to be a doozy.
Same to you, Matt. Thanks so much for the time.
Take care.
That's Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. The best when it comes to covering the Kansas City Chiefs. It is going to be frigid. And again, if you don't want to watch the game on Peacock for whatever reason, listen right here on 580 WIBW and FM News 104.9 throughout the capital city to hear Mitch Holthus and the gang on the Chiefs radio network. We have to get to a timeout for the news. When we come back, we will make our picks for Super Wild Card Weekend here on 580 Sports Talk. now halfway home, maybe even a little beyond halfway home on this Red Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you. 5:30 approximate start time tonight for our Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader. One of the best rivalries between schools in the city and all of Northeast Kansas. Seaman versus Shawnee Heights tonight. Great girls game, ranked girls game coming up. Should be a really fun boys game as well. Always is. Dan will be on the call. That one again, 5:30 pregame start time approximately. 5:45 game one tip-off between Seaman and Shawnee Heights coming up tonight. Here in this 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, before we get there, we've got our picks for Super Wild Card Weekend. We will pick all 6 games. I know we'll be on the air Monday before we get to the Monday night game, but still, we'll make our picks now. We reserve the right to change it. Our picks competition is over for the year. Dan won.
Yes, I did.
I guess Jake didn't finish out the year, so that's a DNF.
Yes, he didn't finish the race.
Oh man,
that's the way it goes.
Heartbreaking.
We make the rules because he's not here anymore.
No, so sad.
So I did win, and it wasn't like I covered myself in glory this year. I think my record was just a shade above 500 by the time it was all said and done.
Close to it, yeah.
Just right around 500. Probably if you'd bet with me down the line, you'd have been down a little juice. So it's not as though I was spectacular, but I was better than you. And that's really what was important here.
Yeah, how fast do you have to beat outrun a bear?
Faster than the other guy you're running with.
Yeah, faster than the guy you're with. So that ends up being a win. And the anti-Mike Matheny, I will tip my hat to Dan for the win this year. Not a great slate of picks on the show for me, but we'll bounce back come next year. We're still going to make picks throughout the postseason, though, including one for all 6 games of Wild Card Weekend. We've also got What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, coming up in about 20 minutes as we find our weekly champion. Can anyone take down the Gorilla Wedding? It is going to be very difficult to do so, but we've got 2 stories today. And then we'll preview the rest of the weekend and all the action from around the sports world. KU versus OU. K-State versus Texas Tech on the hardwood, plus some other storylines and headlines from around the NFL that we will get to from Wild Card Weekend. We're taking your texts, 785-272-9429, and we're also taking your comments on the YouTube stream. Go to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk. Make sure you subscribe while you're there. And right now would be a great time to subscribe, to check out the YouTube feed, all we're doing over there. It would be a great time to be aware of some big news here on 580 Sports Talk, and a lot in the last couple minutes have sort of segued us into this. Speaking of Jake, obviously had his last show at the end of 2023, and while there's no replacing Jake after his 18 years here,
truly like Beyonce, irreplaceable.
Yeah, it ain't gonna happen. But we're entering a point where we have a fun new era, a brand new world, if you will, with a little less Big Brother intervention here on 580 Sports Talk. And you may have noticed that for the last several weeks, it has just been Dan and I. And while it has been fun, it has been a little bit lonely with just 2 of us in the studio and control room.
And you may have also noticed that this is a busy time of year for the both of us. And there is a lot of, hey, I got to duck out because I've got this game. Or, hey, I got to go to the middle of Missouri to go do Washburn basketball. And so it leaves a lot of us solo without a dance partner for an extended amount of time. We say all that to say that a 2-person, 4-hour sports talk show at times can be rough, and we miss having a third. And so we're going to do something about that.
We are going to bring in a third member, the newest member of the long and storied, at least until we got here, history of 580 Sports Talk and Sports on 580 WIBW, starting on Tuesday next week. We will be here Monday. Dan and I will do the show together on Monday. We'll recap the Chiefs playoff weekend, but it's a holiday. So to be frank with you, we can't bring in a new employee on a holiday because we're the only 2 in the building. But on Tuesday,
they do not give me all of the passwords and key codes and all of the things to successfully onboard an employee by myself. These are not powers that we have.
There are several pieces of paperwork that, frankly, I have not seen since I was a new employee and do not know where to get them and where to figure them all out. We will have to figure that out on Tuesday. So on Tuesday, we will welcome Spencer Dupuis, the newest member of the 580 Sports Talk team. Spencer comes to us from Virginia.
West Virginia.
Well, I think he's from Virginia originally, but went to school in West Virginia as well?
Yes, he's relocating from West Virginia.
Okay.
He may originally be from, he's from the DMV area. So he's going to bring a nice East Coast bias to our program that we're really excited about. We did vet him. He does not root for any team that is particularly objectionable to anyone here. We made it very clear. We're not going to tolerate Raiders fans. We're not going to have any Bronco fans.
Certainly no Bronco fans.
That's how I got hired. I had to swear a blood oath on that one. No Yankees fans. Certainly no White Sox or Guardians fans. Like no Nebraska fans.
No, none of that.
We couldn't do that. He passed. He checked every box. So he is coming to us from out east. He's a graduate of Marshall University, a thundering herdsman, perhaps
a herdsman.
I don't know.
A member of the herd.
I don't know how they refer to themselves. I mean, I'm a DePaul Tiger. I say I'm a tiger. Like, what does he say?
We'll find out Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll get to know Spencer. We're excited to bring him aboard. We're excited for him to bring his talents and add them to what Brendan and I have put together and built here with 580 Sports Talk. And we hope that you will welcome him with open arms.
And we know he's jacked up about it. We have heard from him. He is super fired up about being here. We do know he got into town. He made it safely before things got real nasty outside.
That's a relief.
Yes, it's a good relief. So he was a good driver. That is a plus. But he's fired up about it. We're really fired up too. And he's going to dive right in. We got Chiefs, KU, K-State, plenty of NFL news, coaching carousel in full effect. I'm sure we're going to get some takes from him about the coaching carousel. We do know he's a Commanders fan.
Yes, he is. A lifelong Commanders fan. He'll have some thoughts, certainly on the coaching carousel. He has covered the Big 12, covered West Virginia athletics while he was out there in West Virginia. So he's got some Big 12 background. Yep. He's going to bring to the program some Big 12 knowledge that he's going to be able to share with us. And we're really, really excited to have a third voice and to bring that back bring that back around for you guys to have a more of a round table instead of just me and Brendan yelling at each other for 4 hours.
Yeah, and he's he's got experience. He's a radio pro. He's been in the business. Has been out of school for a couple of years, and it's going to be fun. We're really looking forward to it, and looking forward to getting a new voice in here. Some little new blood in the mix. Sam on YouTube asks, is he a West Virginia fan? So he told us that while he went to Marshall, which, natural rival with West Virginia, he's covered the Mountaineers for the last couple of years as a professional and has come to appreciate them and know Big 12 football and basketball and get into it. So maybe not a dyed-in-the-wool, blue and gold West Virginia fan, but he knows the Big 12.
Can't imagine any Marshall graduate would ever be a West Virginia fan.
No, I can't imagine. So.
And there's still a little bit of history there.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so.
So, no, he knows Big 12. He knows Big 12 ball. So, that's something we're excited about. We have really done the hard sell for this guy.
I think it's actually going to work out perfectly that he starts on a Tuesday. We'll do Random Question Tuesday.
Yes.
So it's pretty much going to be let's interrogate him.
We're probably going to do Random Question Tuesday every hour, probably.
Probably
do some version of Random Question Tuesday with the new guy.
But, it's part of the fun process of it, and I went through it and was embarrassed by it when I started, because you find out something about your coworkers in this business very quickly. Like, there's no... you hide in your cubicle, you hide behind your door in your office, and you don't, no one knows your private life. No, it becomes very apparent very quickly when you work here.
It took us a week to figure out you stole food off of strangers' plates at restaurants. Like, that was the thing that we learned about you right away.
Yes.
That was
my first week. Yeah.
Yes. And your predilection for fast food. And I'm sure there were things that you guys learned about me that maybe I inadvertently shared with the listening audience as I got started here. But no, it has been a while since we've blooded in someone new to the staff, and so we're really excited for him to join us. We're really excited for you to hear him, and we just hope that you guys embrace him and welcome him in. Give him a good welcome when he's here on Tuesday.
Yeah, and we are super fired up about it, and we'll of course have plenty of NFL postseason, NFL news to break down when Spencer gets here. And what a perfect lead-in to our super wild card weekend picks. 6 games this weekend. We're going to pick all of them. We'll go Saturday through Monday. Why don't we start? Let's just get the easy one out of the way. We already made our game picks. We're both taking the Chiefs. Have you changed your mind in the last 2 hours?
No, I have not. No, I still think the Chiefs are going to win the game. I think that they have, again, the cold really limits a lot of the advantages. It's going to be so cold that I don't think that advantages one team or another, like schematically. But I do think that being the fresher team against a really beat up team is what's going to matter over the course of 60 minutes.
Are you at all surprised the line hasn't moved anymore? It was 1.5 for about 1.5 seconds when the line opened. It got to 3 and 3.5 within 24 hours. Currently sits at 4.5. Are you surprised it hasn't moved at all, or that the total hasn't moved?
Yeah, the total probably more so, because the total's gone down 8.5 points in the Pittsburgh-Buffalo game. I guess that's the difference between snow and not, right? Like, they're not expecting snow to be falling actively during the game Saturday night, where Sunday afternoon it could be snowing while the Bills and the Steelers play. And so the over-under in that game, the total I think opened at 43. It's 34.5 now. It is completely bottomed out. So
33.5. It moved again.
Oh, wow.
33.5.
That's amazing. That means it moved since I saw Darren Ravel's tweet about it, which was not long ago. It was actually last hour is when I saw it. So yeah, that line continues to move. I am surprised that the over-under hasn't moved. That does surprise me. I think what that says is they probably priced in the weather to start, and also have priced in the fact that the Chiefs defense is really good and that they've played a bunch of lower scoring games this year. The Chiefs haven't played a lot of 38-35 shootouts.
I kind of like the under in this game at under 44. I mean, my prediction for the game was 21-10, so I'm on the under there. I think I might compound my hammer on the Chiefs -3 with under 44 in this one. The other game on Saturday, I think this game is fascinating. Browns versus Texans. The Browns have a nasty defense. It is really good. Joe Flacco has been shockingly good since returning to the field. However, statistically speaking this year, in terms of points allowed, in terms of scoring margin, in terms of the efficiency metrics, Cleveland is far worse on the road defensively than they are at home. This game will be climate controlled. This game will be domed at NRG Stadium in Houston. The Texans, or closed roof anyway. The Texans are a team that we talked about this going into last week and on Monday's show. They don't know what they don't know as a team. That is such a young team. And their head coach has coached in the postseason before, has played in the postseason as a player, but first time as a head coach. So is that maybe scary for them because they don't have that experience, or scary for their opponents because they're not going to play scared? They're not going to turtle up in the moment. At least you wouldn't expect so with who their head coach is, who their players are. I'm going with Cleveland here. They're favored by 2.5 on the road. Taking a road favorite is dangerous in the postseason. But I just like that defense, even with the worst road numbers. I think they're going to make things difficult for C.J. Stroud. Second time playing this Texans team in just the last few weeks. I will take Cleveland.
We talked last week about, in the Houston-Indianapolis game, Indianapolis's defense being a really good matchup for C.J. Stroud. Indianapolis plays a lot of cover 3. C.J. Stroud is really good against cover 3. C.J. Stroud struggles against cover 1, and that's what Cleveland likes to play. So I think that Stroud, still very much a rookie quarterback. We saw him put on a show last week, but I think he's going to struggle against this Cleveland defense with their great pass rush. Turnovers are the only thing that makes me nervous. Joe Flacco still very turnover prone. Both of these teams are good at turning the other team over. I think this could be a game where you see like 2 or 3 turnovers total. It could be each team maybe with multiple turnovers in the game potentially, because both teams have been good at creating that. But I'm going to go with the veteran team, the team with the veteran quarterback in the playoffs, going on the road. He's had that experience of doing that before and winning. I think Flacco and the ground game with Jerome Ford make enough plays to get it done. And I do think Cleveland gets out of there with a win. I think they frustrate Stroud and give him a bit of a welcome to the postseason.
Early game on Sunday. This line has moved 0.5 point. I'm using the sports book at FanDuel right now. Bills at home in the snow. We just talked about the total in this game. Favored by 9.5 over the Steelers.
There's a part of me that wants to pick Pittsburgh in this game, but that part of me then remembers that they don't have TJ Watt, and they are like, Watt is as important a player as there is in this league on defense. He's a center of gravity type of guy. He changes how you have to defend. He changes how you have to block. He changes how you have to scheme. And without him there, I mean, it's easy enough to account for one good pass rusher with Alex Highsmith. But if you have to account for 2, it changes the dynamic. I think Buffalo comes in with a lot of momentum, playing at home. That place is going to be a madhouse, even in the snow. Pittsburgh probably covers that big spread, but I think Buffalo wins. It's hard it's such a big number, 9.5 in bad weather, where you feel like there's not going to be a lot of scoring.
Yeah.
That like it could be 20-14, and that's still a cover. But can Pittsburgh score that many points? I don't know. I think the game suits Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh's going to cover, but I'll go Buffalo to win the game outright.
I would take Buffalo outright as well, but picking it against the spread, I want Pittsburgh in this game just because the number is that big. That's the only reason why. Because yes, it's actually insane how bad Pittsburgh has been straight up without TJ Watt. 11 games without TJ Watt, the last 11 games in his career. The Steelers are 1-10. That is not a good number. Not an encouraging number at all going into this postseason game. Mason Rudolph, I don't think is very good. I think that's a big concern in this game. I know he's played better than Mitch Trubisky, and he's kept his job over Kenny Pickett, but I mean, what does that actually say about Mason Rudolph? I think that says more about the guys he's beaten out than what it says about Mason Rudolph himself.
They are playing with more confidence on offense.
Yeah.
I give him some credit for that, but I just like the numbers year round suggest that they're still not great at running the football. Like that outlier performance against Seattle 2 weeks ago notwithstanding, it's still not a team that runs it very well. The games that they've won, they've hit for big pass plays. Are those going to be available in the snow? I don't think so.
Going to be a lot harder to generate those.
I think it's going to be hard for Pittsburgh to score, but I also think it's going to be hard for Buffalo to score. It feels like 17-10, something like that.
Yeah, so against the spread, I'm taking Pittsburgh. I liked it better at 10 than 9.5.
I'm talking myself out. I'm talking myself back into Buffalo covering.
Really?
I'm talking myself into Buffalo covering because if Pittsburgh doesn't hit for the big pass play, how are they going to score? Like, are they going to really sustain drives? I don't think Buffalo's defense is great, but I think it's good. I don't think they can sustain enough drives to score like a lot of like. I don't know if they can get to 10. I don't know if they can score. I don't think they can score. I don't know if they can score a touchdown if they don't hit over the top for a big passing play. I don't think it's going to be there. So I am changing my mind. I'll take Buffalo to cover and win by 10+.
Wow.
Yeah. Talk myself out of it.
All right, we're on different sides of the ledger on that one. Afternoon game on Sunday. Packers, Cowboys. Feels kind of like a house money game for Green Bay. Like, hey, you didn't think you were going to get there. Jordan Love's playing out of his mind. Your defense is no good. The Cowboys, there's all the narrative there with Mike McCarthy playing Green Bay in the playoffs. The Packers with Aaron Rodgers dominated the Cowboys in general, but especially in Dallas or in Arlington. Cowboys are favored by 7 at home. I'm taking Green Bay. This line has moved as well toward the Packers by 0.5 point. It was 7.5 for a couple of days. I would have liked it a little bit better there, getting the extra hook, but I'm going to take Green Bay here. I think Green Bay is going to be able to put up points in this game. Dallas cannot stop the run very well. And Aaron Jones, despite the fact that it's been a pretty tough season for him overall, he's gone over 100 yards 3 consecutive games, high carry number in the last couple of games. The Packers sparingly used him during the regular season for these kinds of moments to be able to unleash him with a full carry load late in the year. I think Love will be able to throw it a little bit. He's been careful with the ball. The difference is I don't think Green Bay is getting a stop in this game, and that's what I think is going to end up leading the Cowboys to victory. If Dallas gets 1 turnover or forces 2 punts in the game, that should be enough to win.
Yeah, I kind of think that's how it's going to happen. I have Dallas winning by more than a touchdown here. I just don't think Green Bay can slow them down. I think Dallas will be able to score at will, and I think that if they are able to take an early lead, they're going to be able to tee off and hit Jordan Love and really make him uncomfortable and probably force a turnover or two. Green Bay's played great, but they're a year away from being a serious contender. This is a fully actualized Dallas team, at least at home they are. So I think Dallas wins this. If Green Bay keeps it close, if they go in the locker room and they're only down 3 or if they're ahead, then it gets interesting.
Yeah.
Because maybe Dallas panics. Maybe Mike McCarthy panics a little bit. But if Dallas is able to throw the first punch, which they've been really good at doing at home, I think they should be able to keep Green Bay at arm's length the whole game.
And again, had this been in Green Bay, I might be even more confident in a Packers spread cover, but Dallas is just so good at home. They've been so good for so long at home. So I'll take the Packers to cover just because, but Dallas should win that game outright. Rams, Lions, you and I are both on the underdog here.
Yeah, and I'm on them to win outright. I think the Rams are going to go on the road and pull off the upset.
I think so too.
I think there's a coaching advantage here with Sean McVay and Dan Campbell. As much as I like Dan Campbell, I think McVay is going to figure out how to dent that Detroit defense. And I think playing indoors really helps this Rams offense, which has been outstanding. Detroit apparently might get Sam Laporta after all. He practiced today and he's listed as questionable, where they thought he might have to miss a week, at least one. That would be huge if they could get him, and might make me, if he's anywhere close to 100%, maybe Detroit's going to have enough firepower. But I see the Rams as being a more experienced group, more experienced quarterback, more experienced defensive star in Aaron Donald, more experienced head coach in these spots, going on the road and beating Detroit, extending the playoff misery of the good people of the Motor City.
Yeah, I'm going with the Rams too. I think they've got a quarterback advantage. I think they've got a coaching advantage here. And the aggressiveness of Dan Campbell could pay dividends, but it has also multiple times this year cost them dearly. You look at the Cowboy game. The whole reason they were in that situation with the referee bungle job at the end was because they were trying to get too cute. They were trying to fool everyone on the field. Didn't work. Against the Packers on Thanksgiving Day, they went for it. I believe it was 5 or 6 times on 4th down. They got one of them. That was a big reason why they got run off the field in that game. I'm going to go with the Rams. I think they cover the spread. I think they win outright. Last one, Monday night. We'll talk more about this on Monday. Buccaneers at home, getting 3 points against the bad vibes Eagles.
Yeah, Tampa Bay is going to win outright. A.J. Brown hasn't practiced all week. If he's limited in any way, Jalen Hurts back to full practice, but there's no way he's 100% with that hand the way it looked in week 18. And the rest of the team is giving me Cancun on 3 energy right now. And that's where I think they're headed. I think Tampa Bay wins.
We're on Tampa Bay together on that one. A lot of similarities for our picks this week. Maybe dangerous for those favorites we picked or the teams we picked in general. I like Tampa, though. The Eagles, just horrible vibes all across the board. Those are our weekly picks. Let us know your favorite game of the week. And if you haven't told us already, your Chiefs picks as well, either the text line or in the YouTube comments. Right now, let's get to a timeout. What is wrong with you follows that here on 580 Sports Talk. for the final What Is Wrong With You of the week here on 580 Sports Talk, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. They cut the metal you need to your specifications. You know what that means. It saves you time, money, and material. So never settle when it comes to your metal with Top City Metal Supply, which you can find on South Topeka Boulevard right here in the capital city, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Our winner for the week is the Gorilla Wedding, the wedding party, including bride, groom, wedding party, guests, photographer, everyone who essentially stormed a coffee shop next to a wedding venue and had their wedding. And then when they were asked to pay for it, because we didn't allow that, you didn't book it, they said, well, we'll make a $200 donation.
Fee was $500 plus incidentals for renting the venue.
And they refused to pay.
Yes. Said you're being unreasonable. No, you showing up with 30 people and keeping the coffee shop from doing any business, and then your wedding party spends $60 on lattes and they don't tip.
Did you know there are pictures of this?
Yes.
Yeah. Have you seen them?
Yes. Like they're in like a very confined space. Like it's not a big space at all.
Yeah. It is outrageous, man. I hate these people. It's like tiny. I hate them so much. So that's our current winner for the week. We've got two new stories trying to take it down. My story is going to take us to New Jersey, where a personal assistant hired by a New Jersey couple stole nearly $3 million from the family, according to federal authorities. Charles Gallo, a 34-year-old man of Hawthorne, New Jersey, was charged by complaint with wire fraud following an investigation into his financial transactions while working for the couple. The couple hired Gallo as their part-time personal assistant all the way back in 2018. In this role, he was tasked with managing their bank accounts, paying bills, and assisting with email and other computer-related tasks. I would assume this is an older couple, probably, or just one that doesn't want to work. Prosecutors allege that between March of 2022 and 2023, Gallo misappropriated $2.9 million of the couple's funds by making credit card purchases, withdrawing money from ATMs with their debit cards, cashing checks made payable to himself from their bank accounts, and even opening a line of credit in their names.
Jeez.
Also, guys, I know he's your assistant. Maybe like occasionally take a look at your bank account.
Right? Before he gets away with $2.9 million.
An investigator with the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, those are the guys you don't want to mess with, alleged that Gallo ordered items online, including computer equipment and gaming systems, and had them shipped to his own address. Well, that's dumb. As well as a library in Bergen County where he was also employed. Court documents did not disclose the ages of the victims. He appeared before U.S. Magistrate Jose Almonte on Thursday and was released on a $100,000 bond. His attorney did not respond to a request for comment. $3 million. He bought an Xbox One. He's buying the PS5. He got MLB The Show, like the collector's edition of it. That's $100.
All the extra stubs.
Oh, yeah, he's buying stubs.
And the hat.
Yeah, he's got
He got the version with the hat.
He's got every single Fortnite skin you can buy. I mean, what in the world are you doing? And again, guys, maybe check your bank account once in a while.
Yeah, I don't know that I would ever get to the point where I say, yes, I want somebody else to be in charge of my money in this way. Like, it's one thing to say, oh, I've got an investment guy. I'm going to,
I got my tax guy.
Yeah, a certain amount of money. I'm going to put an account. They're going to invest it for me. Like, I understand having a money guy, but like, oh, you're going to have all my passwords to pay all my bills and manage my bank account and my email. You're going to have those passwords too. Man, nah, that's a little too much trust. That is a level of trust. No.
No. I would not do that.
Bad
but I also don't have $3 million to invest.
Bad guy, but also bad plan.
Correct.
For my story today, we're going to Bellevue, Nebraska, the greater Omaha area. We're going to read a tweet from Sergeant Sean Vest of the Bellevue Police Department. If you live in Old Town Bellevue and are currently pouring gas onto the snow and trying to light it on fire as a form of snow removal, you cannot do that. Our officers are on the way to talk to you now. That's the story. That's it.
All right. So, two things. Number one, another story involving fire. I did not realize how, not into fire and pyro I was until we started doing What Is Wrong With You.
Right. There are a lot of people who are really into fire.
Remember the guy who tried to kill a spider and burned his house down?
Yes.
Yeah. The other thing here, to build off of that, do you know that heat will melt snow without gas?
Yeah, you don't need the gas. The accelerant is unnecessary here. If you really just want to like light some snow on fire, you can do it.
Yeah, just like hold a match over a little pile of snow. It'll melt.
Yeah. You get a hair dryer, do
Yeah.
it that way, or just shovel the damn snow. I'm sorry it doesn't melt fast enough for you. Get your shovel out and do a little manual labor, big dog.
So why do you need to get rid of snow this badly? And that might just be a rhetorical question, but why do you need to get rid of snow to the degree where you're willing to pour gasoline on the lawn?
Depending on how much it might have drifted. Like there's a chance, like there was one time when I lived in Nebraska. It was west central Nebraska. It wasn't the Omaha area. But when I lived in Nebraska, there was one time there was a gnarly enough snowstorm and it drifted enough that I absolutely could not move my car. I could not get it out of my parking space. There was no moving it. I had to call out of work. I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it until plows showed up.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't get out of my parking spot. So I would understand, like, okay, the snow is drifted. It's going to make it hard for me. I got to get to work. I got to clear this snow. Shovel it, big dog. Get the shovel out. If you are infirm and not able to do the shoveling, call around.
Yeah. My parents have a snowblower, which is fun to use because it shoots out the top of the thing. Get one of those bad boys. Those are fun.
Gasoline in an open flame. You are asking for disaster. Why do you think that's a thing you can do?
So very, very stupid.
Why is the solution to everything fire?
I will never understand. I really won't. I thought I liked fire. I don't like it that much for sure. All right, who's our winner today?
I just love the simplicity. I mean, as much as your guy sucks, is a bad person.
He does.
I love the simplicity of, hey, please do not pour gasoline onto the snow and then set it aflame. We're going to have to politely ask you not to do that.
It's just so simply stupid that there is something that's almost charming about how basic and dumb it is. I'm with you. I'll go with that one today, but I don't think it beats this horrible wedding.
No,
I hate them. I hate them.
Yeah, the gorilla wedding, the entitlement of it all makes it a real strong entry into the What Is Wrong With You Pantheon as a weekly champion. We'll see it later this month.
Yeah, we definitely will. That is our winner. Was that a Monday story?
Tuesday story.
Tuesday story.
Yeah, we had Connor in the urn on Monday.
That was that long ago. Wow, what a week it's been. But the Gorilla Wedding is our new winner for the week, officially our winner for the week in What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. That's Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, right here in the capital city of Kansas. Coming up on the other side of this break, not only is there a lot going on in the NFL weekend, but plenty of college hoops as well with both KU and K-State in action. Dan's on his way for some high school hoops. Our Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader is coming up later this evening, but we've got more 580 Sports Talk up next here on 580 WIBW. 442 on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski here with you, flying solo for the rest of the afternoon. Dan Lucero is on his way to our Lewis Toyota High School basketball game of the week doubleheader, a city versus city rivalry on tap in the United Kansas Conference tonight. It will be Seaman and Shawnee Heights doing battle, a top 10 ranked girls game first, followed by the boys tilt. That should be a blast as well. 5:30 is the approximate pregame start time for the broadcast tonight, with game one, our girls game, tipping off at about 5:45 right here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. Plus, if you want to listen online, you can do that too at our website. That is 580WIBW.com. Coming up the rest of the way, we've got some KU and K-State to get to here, plus some other headlines from around the NFL as we get ready for a super wild card weekend. We've also got our 580 Sports Talk headlines coming up at the top of the 5 o'clock hour as well. Obviously, a big day and a big couple of days here on 580 Sports Talk. As we told you at the top of this hour, we've got the third member, the brand new member of our 580 Sports Talk team, joining us coming up on Tuesday next week as we welcome Spencer to the fold. We are jacked up about that. No, he is as well. Obviously, so much news in the football world, especially with the coaching changes, with Nick Saban retiring and now already being replaced. We'll get to that in headlines. With Bill Belichick mutually parting ways with the New England Patriots and already being replaced. We'll get to that coming up in headlines as well. We've got tons of upsets in college basketball. KU lost to UCF of all teams. Houston lost for the first time. Top-ranked Purdue lost on the road at Nebraska. Arizona, top 10 team in the country, they lost, or I'm sorry, Tennessee lost as well. I was forgetting which team ranked in the top 5 got upset. Arizona's been upset a few times. Tennessee lost. They're number 5 in the country. They fell to Mississippi State as well on the road. All of that news, can you believe, because I can't, we determined and crowned the national champion of college football this week. I know the older you get, what's the line that goes, the days go long, but the years go fast. Maybe you can shorten it to the weeks go fast, something like that. This week in sports has felt like a year. It is unbelievable that it was Monday night. It was less than 96 hours ago that we named the national champion in college football, that Michigan beat up on Washington, and we saw J.J. McCarthy host the college football playoff national championship trophy. The same for Jim Harbaugh and that Michigan Wolverines team. That's at the very bottom of the sports world's level of interest right now. It's coaching changes and it's a number of other things in college basketball. It's all these upsets. It's conference play getting underway. Ridiculous that we are at this point where that is so low down the totem pole of things the sports world cares about. It was 4 days ago. And maybe I just sound like I'm just learning that now I'm getting older and now things go by really quickly. And if that's the case, I certainly understand that. But it is kind of hard to believe that it was that recent. All right, we've got actual sporting events coming up, still to look forward to this weekend. Great weekend of college hoops coming up for our teams in the Sunflower State and our teams along I-70, just off I-70 if you're K-State. Why don't we start with KU, though? Because I think in terms of drama, in terms of intrigue, KU versus Oklahoma tomorrow afternoon, 1 o'clock tip-off at Allen Fieldhouse against Oklahoma. I already said Oklahoma. Sorry. Number 9 versus number 3. KU will not be in the top 10 this week after that loss to UCF. Maybe if KU comes out and beats OU by 20+, the Jayhawks cling to number 10 or something when all the votes are tabulated, but I have a hard time seeing that happening. This is a good OU team. We talked about it with CJ Moore yesterday during our first Big 12 basketball breakdown of the college hoop season and of the conference season. And I asked him straight up, hey, is this OU team for real? Because it's been ugly the last couple of years. And I like Porter Moser, but I don't know that he's going to get things figured out. I believe I said earlier on in the process, you got to go back to media day back in October, early November when I was thinking about this and mentioning it on the air. But I don't know. I don't really believe in this Oklahoma team. Oklahoma's got better athletes than it has had on the floor, certainly in the entire time that Porter Moser has been there in Norman. They've got guys who can shoot. They've got guys who are great athletes. Bill Self was talking about a couple of them today during his press conference, in fact. So it's going to be tough for Kansas to knock off OU. They are going to be, I should say, a more difficult matchup than they've been in the last couple of years. That being said, the intrigue with this game, to me, is much more about the Kansas side of things. It's much more about the way Kansas is going to react to what happened to it on Wednesday night. We emphasized it yesterday on the show. We talked about it with CJ. I've unfortunately been thinking about it almost nonstop since then. That loss was awful for Kansas. To be up as many as KU was up, to lose the way it lost, to score, 23 points in the second half? I mean, that sort of performance really somewhat unforgivable when you consider the caliber of opponent. And I know they were keyed up, and I know they threw a junk zone defense at KU that the Jayhawks weren't ready for, weren't prepared for. I understand all of that. Look at the dudes who are on the other team. Look at the coach on the other team. Look at who you have on the sideline as your coach. Look at the talent you have. Even with a short bench, that should never be a game that KU lost. Never. They did, though. So how do you respond? How does a team with almost no depth respond to that? Well, Bill Self gave us a look into that today, because he announced that Johnny Furphy is going to enter the starting lineup. He's going to be the 2 guard for KU. And if you are someone who is into the advanced metrics of basketball, maybe even beyond the Ken Pom numbers, because you hear us talk about Ken Pom all the time, it's probably the best access point to advanced metrics in college basketball because it's pretty mainstream at this point. He's done a great job with his system and retooling it over the years. And even if you don't know what all goes into his numbers, you at least know, okay, there's a ranking. He's taking a handful of different things into account: strength of schedule, offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency, etc. But if you want to look into numbers from all sorts of different places, Bart Torvik does them. Evan Miyakawa does them. If you're really into the nerdery of college basketball, I'm sure you've heard these names. One of the best lineups, not just for Kansas, not just in the Big 12, one of the most efficient 5-man lineups in the country is DeJuan Harris, Hunter Dickinson, Kevin McCullough, KJ Adams, and Johnny Furphy. So bringing Furphy into the starting 5, that is one way to try to provide this team a spark, especially because Marco Jackson has been playing very poorly, and that sucks. And it doesn't suck because I'm not upset with him. I'm frustrated that it's not working with this 5-star freshman, and I think he'll put it together eventually. He's young. I understand all of those things. These are all things we've touched on already this season. That's the thing that's frustrating about this KU team. We all can see the issues. We just don't know if these are issues that can actually be fixed, and especially not fixed on the fly. But it's been a rough couple of games to start conference play for Marco Jackson after it felt like, as we approached the start of the new year, he was starting to come into his own. He was starting to figure it out, playing with more confidence on the offensive end, especially. Hasn't materialized right now. He's going through a freshman slump. It happens. But this is conference play. This is Big 12 play. You don't have the luxury, even as a Kansas-type program, in whatever conference you're playing in, you don't have the luxury in this league of being able to say, well, we can go through the growing pains and figure it out and let him get acclimated. No, you've got to win. You want to win the league. You've got to win it now, because let me rephrase. You might not be able to win the league now, but you can sure as hell take yourself out of the league race right now. And I'm not saying Kansas is going to end up looking like Michigan State, which in the Big Ten is now, I believe, 1-4 to start Big Ten play. I don't think KU is going to go 1-4 to open the Big 12. But could Kansas lose to Oklahoma, even at home? And I know there's probably a K-State fan or someone else in the Big 12 fan listening right now who's rolling their eyes. Yeah, KU ain't losing at home. Probably not. But OU's good. OU's got athletes. KU struggles with depth. It is hard to keep up with a team that is that athletic and can run a little bit for a full 40 minutes when you can barely take anyone in off the bench. That was a big reason I thought why KU struggled with TCU, even though I'm pretty high on this year's TCU team. So while I like the Johnny Furphy add to the starting lineup because he's playing well, because that particular group of 5 for KU meshes, it doesn't really solve the problem of who is going to come and help out. Who is going to come off the bench and in a key moment make a play for you? Do you trust Marco Jackson? Maybe he just needs to come off the bench. Some guys are better in that role. Remember the national championship run 2 seasons ago for KU. Self wanted Remy Martin coming off the bench because he thought that is the way they were best able to use his abilities. And then he was on the floor down the stretch in games too. You know, it's always more important who closes the game relative to who starts it. And I think any coach, including Bill Self, would tell you that. But KU needs to find some kind of spark. And that's the Furphy move. Okay, fine. Can you trust Marco Jackson to start making plays for you on the fly, now coming off the bench as your sixth man? What are you going to get any given game out of Nick Timberlake? He just hasn't made the kind of strides as a shooter that KU has needed him to make this year. Is Parker Brown going to give you anything? Can you trust Jamari McDowell to give you at least a handful of usable minutes in conference play? We don't know the answers to these questions. And that's what makes this so frightening if you're KU, that even if you're not starting like a Michigan State team at 1-4 in conference play, a team that had high aspirations for this year, there are major concerns as we get into the meat of the schedule. And as we get into games that are tougher and tougher and more road contests and more challenging games at home, even at Allen Fieldhouse. So that is my big question for this game for KU this weekend. How do you respond to getting embarrassed? Let's be frank. Because now you're getting memed on, because now there's a shoe that was thrown on the floor during the court storming on Wednesday. That's had its own viral moment. UCF's gone crazy. We've got gifs of Johnny Dawkins going nuts now. It became a bit of a laughingstock. So how does this group respond? Marco Jackson, how do you respond? DeJuan Harris, who's been giving the ball away so much more often than we're used to. And Self today said, well, that's accounted for, and he's taking more risks, which can mean more big plays. But what do you want more from DeJuan Harris? Do you want the bigger plays? Do you want the riskier plays with the higher payoff? Or do you want the smarter plays where he's maintaining possession of the ball? I think that's a worthwhile discussion. I would prefer the latter, but apparently KU at least has a little bit pushed for the former. Tried to get a little more out of him. If that leads to him scoring, maybe that's what KU needs. The problem is it hasn't led to him scoring more. So how do you respond after an embarrassment, getting to come home, getting to play another tough team, but a team you've had success against recently? What are you able to do to show that toughness and to show that you're a conference contender and a title contender? That's what I want to know from KU coming up tomorrow at 1 o'clock. K-State, meanwhile, in a game you can catch right here on 580 WIBW, your home for Wildcats athletics on the K-State Sports Network. K-State's one of three teams in the Big 12 that is 2-0 through 2 games of conference play. One of 3. That is crazy. Everyone else has at least 1 loss in league play. 3 teams have 2 losses already through league play. You get to play another one of those teams in Texas Tech. I said earlier in the show in passing, this is a battle of 2 teams that both would probably feel like this is an accomplishment this year if they made it to the NCAA tournament. And if you're Jerome Tang, you're not going to admit that. Your standard is Elite Eights now, at the very least. You want to go higher than that. I don't know that this team is as good as last year's team, because as good as Tyler Perry is, as much as I like him, I don't know that he's Marquise Noel. You don't have Naquan Tomlin anymore. Do you have someone who is your new Keontae Johnson? Maybe not in body type or style of game, but at least in terms of contributions. So this is a great test for K-State. And coming on the road, too, it is never easy to play in Lubbock. The USA is going to be rocking for that one, the United Supermarkets Arena. I'm excited. I haven't gotten to watch much Texas Tech at all this season. I'll be off doing Washburn tomorrow, but I'm excited to look back at this one. No, I didn't get too deep into the analysis here, but I'm approaching this game with an open mind. I want to see K-State on the road in a difficult environment put together what they've been able to do the last couple of games. If they can, they're a team to watch out for. We got 1 half hour of 580 Sports Talk coming up after the news. Half an hour to go this week and this afternoon on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski here with you, flying solo for the rest of the show today. We will be off at about 5:30, getting you ready for our Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader. Dan Lucero is all ready to go for Seaman versus Shawnee Heights coming up tonight. Our girls game first, tip-off scheduled for about 5:45. And, of course, the boys' game will follow the girls coming up tonight. Again, the Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader right here on 580 WIBW. Plenty of action basketball-wise on our Alpha Media Topeka family of stations coming up this weekend. Obviously, high school hoops tonight, as I just said. K-State hoops right back here on the Sports Voice of Kansas tomorrow. 3 o'clock tip against Texas Tech. 2 o'clock pregame start time with Wyatt Stan and the whole crew right here on 580 on the K-State Sports Network. And tomorrow afternoon as well, over on our sister station, Country 106.9, we've got Washburn Ichabods basketball. Yours truly will be with the Bods, men and women, in Jefferson City, Missouri, from one capital city to the other, as the Ichabods take on the Lincoln Blue Tigers. Final road conference game against Lincoln. The Blue Tigers are leaving the MIAA at the end of the year, so this will be the final road game as conference foes for Washburn to Lincoln. Two programs that have dominated Lincoln all time. The Washburn women 36-0, the Washburn men 33-6. Looking forward to that doubleheader coming up tomorrow right here over on our sister station, Country 106.9. We will get a final word for you coming up here in just a little bit before we send you off to Dan Lucero and the game of the week. But first, how about we get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines, plus any texts, any comments you've got on what we're talking about today, any headlines. You want to send me another AMA question or two, go for it. We did it last week, had a good time. Any questions you've got for me, send them into the text line, 785-272-9429, or into the YouTube comment section. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube is where you can find us. I would say no holds barred, but I don't know. I don't want to give you guys too much freedom to ask anything. No, whatever you want to ask, sports related or not, send it in text line or the YouTube comments. As we start up today's 580 Sports Talk headlines, let's get to some high school basketball news. Games that have been canceled or postponed today. These are the latest updates we have from teams in the city and throughout the Centennial League as well. We start with the Topeka West Chargers. Their doubleheader against Kansas City Piper has been postponed. Those games have been now rescheduled for Thursday, February 1st. That'll be Topeka West versus Kansas City Piper. Other postponed games, Emporia versus Junction City. That's in the Centennial League, but outside of the city, obviously within our listing area. I know a lot of you listing down in Emporia or further out west. That game has been postponed. Have not seen an updated date for that one yet. Same can be said for another city team, Highland Park, scheduled to take on Kansas City Harmon tonight. That game will be moved. We are still awaiting an updated date for that one. Rossville, their doubleheader today, that was moved up. In fact, it's already in action. Their girls game well underway. That tipped off at 4:30 to try to beat some of the cold and some of the winter weather. And additionally, one game in the city that has been canceled, Washburn Rural was scheduled to take on Manhattan today. However, that matchup between two league foes has been canceled and is off the ledger for now. So that is your update for high school hoops due to the winter weather all over the state, all over our area. And again, we will get you further updates if needed as they continue to roll in. Thankfully, our game all good to go for tonight. We have a couple of coaching changes that are, if not official already, will be made official here within short order. Let's start in the college football world. Nick Saban retired on Wednesday. It was announced shockingly right around 5 o'clock that Nick Saban, hanging it up at 72 years old, all those national championships won at Alabama, the one at LSU, all the success, all the glory, all the accolades, calling it quits, calling it a career. Who will replace the greatest of all time? It appears that it will be Kalen DeBoer, the head coach at the University of Washington, who just in his second season with the Huskies took them all the way to the national championship game and a national runner-up finish. He is likely, and all expectations are pointing this way, heading to Tuscaloosa to be the new head coach of the University of Alabama Crimson Tide. So a couple of things here. First, Washington did try to keep DeBoer. I would have too. I think he's a very good coach, national champion at the NAIA level, has found success everywhere he has been in the FBS level, Division I in general. You look to what he was able to do as an offensive coach at Southern Illinois. You look at what he did as an offensive coordinator for Michael Penix at Indiana, then at Fresno State as the head coach, then Washington as the head coach. He was able to find a lot of success all over the place, a lot of winning football. This is an impossible job. And I don't mean that he can't find some semblance of success or what a lot of people would call success, but success at Alabama is different. The phrase we've used on the show many times over the years, and I know Dan has mentioned it a bunch, is the want to. And programs that want to win, and at the SEC level, and specifically at the University of Alabama, the want to, when it comes to being good at football, is different than the want to anywhere else. The only programs that come anywhere close, Georgia right now, probably Ohio State in that same neighborhood, and LSU might be there-ish, although they've got other things they deal with. Like, I don't even put a Michigan in that debate, even though they just won the dang national championship. Now, at Michigan, it's hard to transfer in. They can't make great use of the transfer portal because of academic restrictions they have on all students who want to transfer in to the University of Michigan. That hampers them. That's what I'm talking about in terms of want to. Finding a way, anyway. And I don't mean devaluing a degree. I'm not saying everybody should go full North Carolina basketball here. But making sure you are able to get the best players, however you're able to get them, scouring the JUCO ranks, being able to take transfers from any level, having the biggest support staff, the most and the best analysts, essentially the recovery home for failed head coaches and failed big names in the sport to come be an analyst or come be a coordinator for Nick Saban for a couple of years, to rehab your image, to learn something, and to go on to success. Look at Steve Sarkisian. He got his team to the playoff this year at Texas. Look at Lane Kiffin and the success he has had at Ole Miss. Got to a New Year's Six game this year. Got to a top 10 ranking at some point this year. How do you replace that? And I don't think you can. We played Change My Mind a little bit earlier on this afternoon. And my statement to Dan was, Kalen DeBoer is going to be fired from Alabama without winning a national championship. And he agreed with me wholeheartedly. It is so hard to win if you don't have, and I mean win at the national championship level, if you don't have exactly what it takes to come out of the SEC or to come out of any of, specifically the Power 2 conferences, SEC, Big Ten, and to have all of the best coaches, all of the best analysts, all of the best connections. It helps to have partners in the College Football Playoff Committee as well and a good reputation there. Can Kalen DeBoer do that in the SEC? The man has no ties to the Southeastern Conference. Doesn't have any ties to the American Southeast, period, as far as we know. He's coached in the eastern half of the U.S., in the Eastern time zone, in Bloomington, Indiana, when he was the offensive coordinator at IU. But that ain't the SEC, man. That's hardly, in terms of want to and the ability to win and push for wins in the Big Ten, that's hardly even a Big Ten program, if we're being completely honest with ourselves, okay? Is he going to be able to hire the right staff? Can he hire guys who have connections to high schools, to 7-on-7 camps, to the right other people involved in the recruiting industry, the recruiting industrial complex in the United States Southeastern region? Can he do that? Because if he can, then maybe he can find that kind of success. Not Nick Saban's success, but no one has Nick Saban's success. He won a similar number of titles to Bear Bryant, but he did it in way less time. Nick Saban was there for 16 years. Bear Bryant was there for more than 2 decades. Won a similar number of national titles. More overall for Nick Saban, in fact, when you take the entire balance of his career. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't have taken the job, because the money that Alabama can offer you, it's a lot. There was a report today, I believe it was from Pete Thamel, that Washington wanted to keep DeBoer, was offering him, before bonuses, before incentives, $4.2 million in base salary. That is a ton of money for any head coach in college sports, unless you're Alabama and you can pay more. and you're just a couple of programs in the SEC or the Big Ten, and I know Washington's going to the Big Ten, but it's not there yet. It's still a Pac-12 program right now and probably will be for a couple of years, even after they're officially Big Ten members. Other schools, a select few of them, can spend essentially whatever they want on a head coach. Hard to keep a guy like that. Sucks for Washington. They've already lost a bunch of players entering the draft. They're going to lose a ton of players to the portal. That's how it works. They get another 30 days now of portal entry window at Washington with their head coach leaving. So I'm not saying Kalen DeBoer shouldn't have taken the job, but those are shoes that I don't think it is possible to fill. Again, the greatest of all time, the greatest recruiter, the greatest coach, the greatest winner in college football history. And you've got to try to replace that with a guy who has been successful, has won NAIA championships, has coached great offenses and really good teams everywhere he's been. But those places aren't Alabama. Washington can be a really freaking good football program, and they have been. Been to 2 playoffs in 10 years. That's a big deal. Not a lot of teams can say that. But that ain't Alabama. Very few places are Alabama. It's pretty much just Alabama, maybe Georgia, maybe Ohio State, maybe LSU when they get their stuff together, which they have struggled to since they won that national title with Joe Burrow, maybe the greatest team of all time. Best of luck to Kalen DeBoer. That is not a job I would have wanted to take. Being the guy after the guy, you don't want that. The guy after the replacement, though, that is maybe the sweet spot, and that's why I still believe that before he's done coaching, Lane Kiffin will be the head coach at the University of Alabama, but that is a story for another day. Hopefully not too soon. I wish Kalen DeBoer the best of luck. Again, he's a great coach. Just a really difficult situation taking over for the best to ever do it. Next up on our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today, why don't we continue? Oh, I wanted to get to this. I'm so sorry. I wanted to get back to this. Who's going to replace Kalen DeBoer? We ran you through that list from Pete Thamel of ESPN earlier, just throwing out some random names of potential coaching hires. The usual suspects were on there. Lance Leipold, Chris Kleiman, Matt Campbell. You know the drill. It's all the same coaches. It's going to be that way. As long as Leipold is at KU, as long as Kleiman is at K-State, they're going to be brought up for these job offers, these job openings. That's just the way it is going to be. I don't think that's going to happen for either of them, for what it's worth. I think the most likely outcome here for Washington is they end up hiring Ryan Grubb, their offensive coordinator. That, to me, sounds like the most understandable approach here. Try to keep as much of that recruiting class going as possible. Really good offensive coordinator, really highly thought of. He had some opportunities to interview for G5 coaching jobs this year and elected to decline them to stay with Washington. Probably didn't know that his head coach was going to end up leaving, but I would assume that is probably the path they take. But hey, if you can get someone who's a little bit better, who's maybe an established name already, maybe you go in a different direction. We have a texter here that says, what about Pete Carroll? That there's a Seattle radio station that said, you call Pete Carroll? I'd call him. Sure, I'd call him. But if you're Washington, do you want to hire a guy who's 72 years old? And I texter, totally fair game, and I'm glad they brought that up because I saw the same thing. I don't know that Washington hires a guy who's 72 years old. Maybe you're playing on borrowed time the entire time. That's not to say Pete Carroll can't still coach, doesn't still have energy. I know that. You just know that the time is going to be limited where he is going to be able to be your head coach. There's not an endless amount of time out there. So I don't think I would do that, even though he's a good coach. I don't know that a team, even almost 20 years later after he left USC, I don't know that not quite 20 years, but it's been plenty of time. I don't know that a college football team, especially another West Coast team, would want to bring him back to the college game after how things ended at USC when he left, but maybe it's there. Maybe that's on the table. Maybe that's a possibility. You got to get creative sometimes. I think it's going to be offensive coordinator Grubb. If it ends up being Pete Carroll, that would be very funny, though. Very, very funny if that ended up happening. Now let's move on to the NFL side of the coaching ledger here on our 580 Sports Talk headlines for this final day of the week, January 12th, 2024. The New England Patriots, just one day after the franchise and maybe the greatest NFL coach of all time, one of the greatest anyway, Bill Belichick, decided to mutually part ways. They have their head coach. And if you have spent a lot of time following the NFL and you know some of the minutia of as many teams as possible around the league, you may have heard over the last couple of years, there was in fact a piece about this, I think in The Athletic, earlier this NFL season, about Gerard Mayo, former Patriots linebacker, one of Bill Belichick's all-time favorite players, and a great player when he was on the field. He was a great college player at Tennessee, great player in the NFL as well, that he was essentially being primed to be a head coach, and probably the head coach of the New England Patriots. And again, that relationship with Bill Belichick obviously helps. I'm not surprised the Patriots went in this direction. I do think it is a gamble, though, and it's not necessarily a bad one. And if, look, this team is able to turn it around, figure it out, get back to their winning ways, maybe not to the degree that Bill Belichick was winning. It's hard to win that many Super Bowls. No one's ever done it before. If they can get back to their winning ways, then obviously it's a home run, reinvigorated some energy in the building, etc. Here is my big question, though. Every other Belichick protege has ended pretty much the same way. Look at all of them. All the guys who were his coordinators, his assistants, Josh McDaniels, multiple stops. 2 where he was actually the coach, 1 where he bailed out early, complete and utter calamity and disaster. Complete garbage, complete nonsense. And then he totally just dipped out on the Colts like a tool. Terrible. Charlie Weiss. College game where he was the head coach, that didn't go so well. Go ask Notre Dame fans how that ended up. Go ask Kansas fans how that ended up. Oh, I can tell you, poorly. Romeo Crennel. Need I say more? Kansas City Chiefs fans. Bill O'Brien, probably the most successful of the bunch. And even that ended terribly because he made some truly boneheaded personnel decisions, which is also a little bit reminiscent of Bill Belichick in recent years. Also, let's throw in one other name here. Brian Flores, who good defensive coordinator, great defensive coordinator, has really turned things around in Minnesota. Essentially started fights with his players in Miami and divided that locker room and nearly ruined Tua Tagovailoa's career with how heavy-handed he was in his approach. So you throw all those things in together. Is Gerard Mayo going to be different? What makes Gerard Mayo different? That's the number one question. Number 2, who is going to call the shots personnel-wise? It shouldn't be Mayo. He doesn't have experience with that. He hasn't been a head coach. He hasn't been a front office guy before. So who are you going to bring into the front office, and what are you going to do about your quarterback? Is Jaden Daniels at number 3 good enough? Do you move up to get Drake May or trade up to number 1 to get Caleb Williams? Do you wait until later in the draft and take a Bo Nix or take Spencer Rattler or someone else? I'm just throwing out names of guys who are draft eligible. Is that what you want to end up doing this year? They've got a lot to figure out. I think this move makes sense. I understand why they're doing it, but it's a big gamble because, again, you're letting the greatest to ever do it walk away. We'll see if Gerard Mayo pans out. They've been priming him for this moment. We'll see if it actually works out for him. We're going to take our final time out here on 580 Sports Talk. But when we come back, we've got a bunch of texts in on the text line I want to get to about a couple of different things. Would love for you to send in your questions about anything. Ask about sports. Ask about KU, K-State Chiefs, the NFL weekend. Ask me something. We'll do a little AMA here before we round things out. So hit us up on the text line, 785-272-9429. Or you can drop us a line on the YouTube stream. 580 Sports Talk is where you can find us on YouTube. Final segment of the week is coming up right after this on 580 Sports Talk. Wrapping up 580 Sports Talk. Been a great week of the show. If you've missed any of the show this week, head over to our website, 580wibw.com. Check out the podcasts page. Click on 580 Sports Talk. That's where you'll find the show broken down hour by hour. You can also go to our YouTube, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. Go check out the live stream, live right now, of course, anytime we're on the air, or you can check out the back catalog of shows too. Have a handful of questions in from YouTube and from the text line. We'll get to the pertinent sports ones first. Have a couple AMA questions we'll get to. We'll do Ask Me Anything until the end of the show. We'll get in as many as we can, so feel free to send those in. Couple on the sports front here first. One from the 785 says, this tells me the Crafts had Gerard Mayo in their sights for a while. 100% agree. This is clear that if they're going to make this move this quickly and not even pretend to go through a coaching search, this was very obvious. They also don't need to follow any sort of procedure since he was already the guy and they can just do a straight promotion from his defensive assistant spot to head coach. They don't need the Rooney Rule anyway. Gerard Mayo is a black man, so they don't need to follow the Rooney Rule other than that. But it's a pretty simple process for the Patriots. And yeah, our texter's 100% right. Obviously, the Patriots knew this was a possibility if they were going to end up going in this direction. Another one from the 785 says, why don't more teams at the pro and college level have succession plans like the Pats? Would think it would help building and keeping culture, keeping your top assistant coach from looking for other things. I think it's brilliant. Although if it ever came out Nagy was the succession plan for Reed, I think fans would riot. Yes, that part is absolutely true. I think in college, teams have tried this more often. If I remember correctly, at one point in time, Will Muschamp was the heir apparent for Mac Brown. Jimbo Fisher was the heir apparent to Bobby Bowden at Florida State. So some programs have done this in the past to various levels of success. Will Muschamp said, it's taken too long. I'm taking another job. He ended up at Florida. We know how that ended up. Then got to South Carolina. Now he's an assistant for the Georgia Bulldogs. Jimbo Fisher, well, he won a national championship. Now he's a laughingstock because of how things went to Texas A&M. But hey, again, he won a national championship. Same text from the 785 says, Pete Carroll, by the way, about the Washington point, has no experience with and probably no interest in dealing with the portal and NIL. I agree with that 100%. I think if Pete Carroll got another NFL job, and maybe he doesn't want it because I know he's staying in the Seahawks front office, maybe he'd at least take the call. I just have a hard time seeing it happen for him in college. I don't know if a college would be super interested in that anymore either. Real quick, because we got to get out of here for some high school hoops, we had two quick questions from the AMA portion of things. One, Brendan, as someone who doesn't drink, how do you get along and deal with stupid, combative, slobbery drunks? I say to hang out with my friends. My friends are pretty calm even when they do drink a little bit, so DDing not usually too big of a deal, but yeah, I try to avoid situations that get too nasty. One other one from Vance on YouTube, glazed donut or cinnamon roll. Give me the donut every single time. I love cinnamon rolls, but donuts, that's number one. That'll do it for 580 Sports Talk. Our final word was that AMA. Appreciate the questions, appreciate the text throughout the show and throughout the week. And coming up on the other side of this timeout, we've got our Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader. Dan Lucero on the call for Seaman versus Shawnee Heights. That's coming up in just a minute. We will join you on Monday to recap the NFL Super Wildcard Weekend. But until then, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. We appreciate you, as always, for listening to 580 Sports Talk. The Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week is up next.